Hey fellas, how are you all? Hope you all are doing great. This is the new part of What If Naruto Has Minato's Intelligence. If you like it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Tsuchikage's grumpy expression brightened just a little bit when he heard a small commotion behind him and saw the bored face of his granddaughter slowly approaching him. When the kunoichi realized she was already in the vicinity of other villages' leaders, she swallowed the boredom and forced a pleasant smile. Kuretsuchi, what took you so long? The Hokage and the Kazekage turned their heads to the left to see a young kunoichi with short hair rolling her eyes at her grandfather. Before she could utter a single word, the Tsuchikage smirked. Oh, don't tell me you were fawning over the Uzumaki kid again. What, the Uzumaki? What are you talking about? Kuretsuchi exclaimed with a scandalized expression, her forced smile gone. When she heard a small chuckle and turned to her left to see it belonged to the Hokage, she closed her open mouth and tried to ignore her burning face. I told you it's not like that, she muttered in a quiet voice and refused to meet anyone's eyes. Truthfully, she seemed more angry than embarrassed. So, I take it this young lady is your granddaughter, Tsuchikage? Sarutobi asked, a wide smile playing on his lips. Yeah, Kuretsuchi, she's a bit rude but, well, she is your granddaughter. The Kazekage interrupted him, absolutely not hiding the mild amusement in his voice and causing the Tsuchikage to glare at him. Behind Sarutobi, Genma masked his chuckle with a cough. It's a pleasure to meet you, Kuretsuchi-san. Sarutobi politely greeted her. The young kunoichi raised her head and, the color red already disappearing from her cheeks, gratefully nodded. In her eyes, the Hokage just gained a small plus point for treating her as an adult. It's my pleasure too, Hokage-sama, Kazekage-sama. She included the Kazekage in her greetings too, and so the man respectfully nodded to her. So, you fancy Naruto-kun? The Hokage innocently asked the girl after a short silence. Behind him, not only Genma, but all three of his bodyguards had to stifle their chuckles. Her cheeks puffing up, Kuretsuchi had to hold back her ire. No, I just find him interesting, that's all. Anything else is just a product of this old man's delusions. She sighed and stared at the Tsuchikage, who nonchalantly shrugged. Then where were you? He asked. The kunoichi pinched the bridge of her nose. I was a bit disappointed with his match, so I just took a short stroll around the arena. He could have completely destroyed the Hyuga girl. I get that what he did was good for her, but such a compassion could cost you a mission on a field. And she still claims he's just interesting, the Tsuchikage muttered quietly. Trying to prevent another bickering, Sarutobi jumped in. Naruto-kun is still young. Don't worry about it. You suddenly call him Naruto-kun. Should we be worried about you trying to push the promotion on him no matter what? The Kazekage asked, his gaze pinned on the spectators' stands. The Hokage rapidly blinked. Don't worry, Kazekage. This is us talking out of the record, so it should be acceptable for me to call my genin like this. The Kazekage nodded and then pointed his finger at the spectators' stand. Well, it seems Kuretsuchi-san isn't the only one who finds the brat interesting. All of them turned their stares in the direction of the Kazekage's finger to see Naruto chatting up to Mari, while Kankuro nervously tried to talk with Gaara. It's the first time I see my daughter talking so calmly and easily with a boy around her age. Perhaps it has something to do with him being the only boy of her age who has ever defeated her in a direct confrontation. Perhaps. Seeing the twitch in his granddaughter's eyebrows, the Tsuchikage shook his head in amusement. He had to admit, the brat seemed to be interesting, just as Kuretsuchi had claimed all those weeks ago. The girl really had a knack for seeing the true value in people, he thought. Of course, he was just teasing her with the fawning thing. He didn't really think Kuretsuchi would look for anything more than just a rival in the boy younger than her. While he had learned to forget the animosity between Konoha and Iwa, he was still not ready to accept his own granddaughter getting a boyfriend from this village. He blinked and, with narrowed eyes, rubbed his beard. Or maybe, just maybe, in case the rivalry would develop into something else, it could prove beneficial for Iwagakure. He was an argued man like that. Ellipsis. After Temari had left, Naruto turned his attention to the arena with a frown and a shudder. For a past while he had been feeling a chill in his bones, as if somebody was staring at him hard. Well, it did not matter at the moment, he thought. The problem was the group of skilled shinobi down at the arena, who had been using the short break in the exams to repair the arena back to its original look. That had caused some of his plans to crumble. He had been relying on the heavily damaged ground to work in his favor, but now, he had to rethink his strategy. With a grimace, he sighed. What were they actually thinking, repairing the arena like that? Wasn't it better to just leave it like that, to see if the genin could adapt to the ever-changing conditions of a battlefield, just like in real life? But he had to admit one thing, though. While the destroyed ground had held some possibilities of making surprising moves, the scale of destruction was too extensive. It could have made some genin lose their hopes of winning the exams. Whatever. This'll take some adapting too, I guess. He took a short glance at the remaining genin in the booth for participants. Sasuke was sitting on the ground with his back leaned on the wall, his eyes closed and his features hardened. He had been like that for quite a while, and Naruto had given up hope of making any kind of small talk. Lee was back from the room for injured, but he was still visibly drained from his match. Naruto didn't think he could win against Sasuke. Not in that condition. Gaara was standing a bit further away from him, his arms crossed and still. There wasn't a slight hint of emotion on his face, which was actually an improvement from the grimace he had had several minutes ago. He was no longer appearing to be so bloodthirsty. It seemed that despite his remarks about killing either of his siblings when they had approached him, their presence had calmed him a little. The last genin in the booth, his next opponent, was cleaning her equipment and seemed mildly cheerful. Naruto pouted. Was she actually happy to go against him because she was underestimating him? That was an irritating thought that had been on his mind for a while and caused him to unconsciously emit a vexatious aura around him. He studied her for a while and then shook his head. Nah, she wouldn't underestimate him. Not after everything she had seen him do. She was just probably trying to get on his nerves, to cause him distress and then slip up in his match. Yeah, that made sense. Unbeknown to him, he was completely right. Ellipsis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like your attention once again. Due to the break ending, we will now resume the final part of Chunin exams. The second, round begins now. Hayate announced after walking to the center of the arena. He turned his gaze to the participants' booth and nodded. To Naruto and Tenten. The next match is Naruto Uzumaki versus Tenten. Come down, you two. Deciding it was finally time to show off some of his abilities and to rile up his kunoichi opponent, Naruto used Shunshin to land next to the proctor and defiantly stared at Tenten. The girl raised her eyebrow and seemingly snorted to herself before joining him down at the arena. Hayate put his hand between them. Begin. Ellipsis. All bets were now off and Naruto was very much aware of it. In this match he had to show off his skills, his strength and power. He had displayed a certain amount of planning ahead in his first fight. Now, he had to demonstrate raw power in order to convince the cage that he was a material worthy of a Chunin promotion. He quickly assessed the situation at hand, but it was Tenten who acted first. Leaping to the air in a single jump, she took out her two large scrolls, and when they started to emit smoke, Naruto reacted. He knew what was coming at him. He still remembered what had happened during the preliminaries. As soon as the girl started to spin around and the many projectiles shot towards him, Naruto threw a smoke bomb below his feet, to obscure Tenten's vision of him. He wasn't stupid and knew this wouldn't even slow her down. Just because she couldn't see him didn't mean she couldn't hit him. No, he did it for a different reason. Before anything could hit him, he flashed through hand seals and slapped the ground beneath him. Earth Release. Earth Dome Jutsu. Inside the dome protecting him from Tenten's attack, Naruto made further preparations and waited. Not long after that, Tenten landed on the ground. Her technique had ended and she was cautiously waiting for its results. She knew she couldn't have won just with that, but hoped she had done at least some injuries. Her hopes decayed as soon as the heavy rain cleared the smoke from the bomb and revealed a sturdy-looking dome with all of her projectiles either embedded in it or lying on the wet ground next to it. Damn. As soon as she uttered the word, she hastily leaned backwards, her instincts honed during long hours of sparring with her teammates screaming at her. And she mentally thanked to herself that she did it when two copies of Naruto leapt from the ground in front of her and sent a pair of punches at her. Accepting the challenge, she engaged them in a hand-to-hand battle. She dispatched them fairly easily, and so she had a feeling something was wrong. She was proven right when another Naruto came at her from behind. Preparing to deal with him, she received a mild shock when that Naruto exploded just after closing the distance between them. In that instant, her mind froze. He killed, but then the small shockwave and pain came and her mind rebooted itself. Trying to avoid further injuries, she let herself get carried through the air and rolled before finally landing in a puddle. The water splashing on her body and her face instantly cooled down her singed skin, but it was not over. She had landed exactly where Naruto had wanted her to land. The young Uzumaki took a deep breath. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. The ball of fire that emerged from his mouth after blowing through a ring made by the thumb and index finger shot forward and traveled through the air towards Tenten at moderate speed. Naruto noticed the distressed expression on the young Kunoichi's face and, for an instant, thought he may had overdone it. But Tenten stubbornly pushed herself off the ground, throwing something on the ground where she was about to land and successfully evaded the fire technique. She did receive additional burns on her skin, but she appeared to be ready for more fighting. A swooshing sound vibrated through the air as a single kunai flew at high speed towards Naruto. When the projectile was about to hit him, the genin smiled and waved at Tenten, causing her distressed expression to return. Naruto was hit in his forehead and, for the first time, the audience gasped. But then he popped out of existence, leaving only a small cloud of smoke behind. It had been a shadow clone all along. The real Naruto, just like his other two clones did before, leapt from the ground behind Tenten, his both palms hitting her. However, when he landed on the ground, he found himself unable to move his legs. He blinked. He asked when he realized he was caught in a trap. Tenten, with a tired smile, pointed at the several kunai with small tags attached to the rings on their pommels that were protruding from the ground all around her. After your clone blew up, and I saw you in the distance, I had a feeling you were trying to push me in some sort of a trap, so, while you were performing the fire jutsu, I threw my tagged kunai all around me, just in case you'd pop up just like your clones did moments before. You clearly managed to catch me off guard with them the first time, so I was sure you would try it again. She tried to smirk but, with confused expression, fell on one of her knees. Naruto smiled. I'm impressed. You almost got me, he said. Reaching into his pocket, he took out a kunai and pointed it at her. However, I think you know what this means. But, in case you're wondering why you feel so weak, I suggest you look down. When she did just that, Tenten noticed a small tag plastered on her right ankle. It had some kind of a seal, which she didn't quite understand, written all over it. It's a seal similar to one I have used in the second part of the exams, though I think you didn't hear about it. Thanks to further study of seals, I was able to modify it so it wouldn't cause the victim to instantly lose his consciousness. What it does is that it basically cuts off most of the chakra circulating within your chakra pathway, rendering you quite useless in a fight until you take it off. He raised the kunai higher and shook his head when Tenten moved her hand towards it. What I suggest you don't do, seeing as I'm pointing a kunai at your head. Unless you think you can take the tag off and roll away faster than I can simply throw the kunai. Tenten's shoulders slumped down. Fine. You win. Hearing her words, Hayate landed next to them and raised his hand. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto spewed a tiny fireball at the kunai, immobilizing him, and, after he could walk again, crouched next to Tenten and took his seal down. While she was obviously feeling down, Tenten did not appear to be angry at him. On the contrary, she immediately turned to him with a confused expression, lightly flexing her limbs. I don't understand. There are people who aren't using almost any chakra and can move just fine. But that seal of yours made me completely lose all of my strength. I mean, I felt my body but I couldn't muster any strength to move it. Now, all of it came back to me at the instant you took this seal off. Helping her on her feet, Naruto chuckled. It's because we have been raised as ninja from our small age. Now, we are so dependent on chakra that suddenly having close to none running through our system causes our bodies to undergo a small shock. After a few days of having my seal on you, you would adapt and be able to move just fine. While the medics tried to push her towards the room for injured, Tenten stared at Naruto with an unreadable expression. But when the effect of the adrenaline in her veins wore down and she began to feel the pain in her burnt skin, she sighed and shook her head with a pained smile. You were right, I do regret making that deal now, but you can cheer me up by showing me some of your skills in seals when you're free. Ellipsis. Up in the cage stand, Tsuchikage, along with Kuretsuchi, stared at the arena with an outrage written all over their faces. Sarutobi was unsure what was going on and wanted to ask, but, thankfully, Tsuchikage recovered soon enough. That jutsu. Yeah, that jutsu. Kuretsuchi repeated after him. A little help here. The Hokage inquired with a hesitant smile. The Iwagakure duo turned to him with grimaces on their faces. The Earth Dome technique. It's one of our, Iwagakure's, prized jutsu. Where in the heavens did he learn it? Before Sarutobi could answer, the old Iwagakure's leader continued while glancing at his granddaughter. Now that I think, I remember you telling me he has used another jutsu that is originally from our village. Earth Shore Return Technique, if I recall correctly. Yeah, something like that. When Tsuchikage stared at him for a long, but heavy, minute, Sarutobi sighed. He didn't want to remind them the scars from the previous scrimmages, but now it seemed unavoidable. Yes, it is most likely due to our past discrepancies during the last war that we have come to a possession of some jutsu from several villages. They should have been stored in a section of a library ordinarily inaccessible to young shinobi, but I can hardly blame Naruto-kun. It is not his transgression. Those two jutsu most likely belong to those techniques and he somehow found them. The Tsuchikage continued to stare at him with a sour expression. It was obvious that he didn't like such an explanation, no matter how logical it was. I see no problems there. Most of the 5 major hidden villages have come into possession of various jutsu. Even we have some that originally did not belong to us. And I know for a fact that some of our jutsu have been taken too. It's a price one has to pay for the foolishness of his predecessors. The Kazekage stated coolly. There was no anger in his voice, but the tone stopped any further quarrels. Hide yo scrolls, hide yo jutsu, 'cause we gonna steal them, ye. In the background, Genma quietly rhymed until one of his fellow bodyguards elbowed him in the side. Hard. He rubbed the sore place and only then he realized he was under fire of a group of glares. It was good. I can die in peace. He mentally exclaimed and tears flew out of his closed eyes. The Hokage rubbed his forehead. Why were most of shinobi such idiots? And since when could Naruto use a fire element? Ellipsis. That jutsu. In the competitor's booth, Sasuke mentally yelled and jumped on his feet. He had been watching the match with one eye, but when Naruto used the fire technique, his second eye snapped open. When? How? This is the Uchiha's jutsu, the one he favors. And Naruto knows it too. He recalled what had been said before the exams had begun, when Kabuto had read the information on his cards. So this is the third element he can use. I saw him use wind and now earth and fire. Sasuke felt his jaw tightening up. Amazing. He involuntarily admitted, but then, his fists clenched. He angrily punched the railing and stared at his feet. When did he get so strong? He's gaining on me so fast. He growled. This wasn't right. Naruto had changed, that was undeniable. But Naruto was still Naruto. He couldn't have turned into a prodigy overnight. And nothing sort of a genius would have come so far after such a short period of time. He managed to learn this since coming from Wave. I know it, and that is barely more than 3 months. 3 months. What have I learned during that time? A face of an older-looking Uchiha came to his mind and he bit his lip, almost drawing blood. How can I take on him, when even Naruto gets stronger than me? His fists trembled. Then they stopped. Another thing came into his mind. He remembered the mission that went so wrong when he subconsciously clammed Sakura down when she couldn't take the sight of so much gore. Naruto was there and he understood him with a single glance. When he had let Sakura behind during the mission in Waterfall Village, because he had thought it was better for her not to take a part in fighting, when he had made a bad decision. Naruto was there and saved Sakura and never said a word about it. It was also a mission during which they helped each other and fluently cooperated for the first time, the mission in Wave not counting. When they coordinated their attacks together without any words. Previous parts of these exams. Both of them had realized Kabuto was suspicious. Both of them had gotten angry for Sakura's sake after Orochimaru's had attacked her. It was the time when they spent some time together, alone. Naruto was the first person he had told about Itachi. About his reason for wanting him dead. And unlike others, Naruto had listened to him and did not try to act like he knew what kind of pain he, Sasuke, had to undergo. It was a time when he had come to appreciate the new bond he had created with the blonde. From that point onwards, they shared laughs, they teased each other, they taunted each other, they mocked each other, and they awkwardly supported each other. Almost like brothers. Sasuke swallowed, suddenly feeling his throat was dry. He wanted to punch the railing again, but this time, not because of anger towards Naruto. Because of anger towards himself. He had been so stupid, so blind, so damaged from what Itachi had done to him. He glanced down at the arena. He still felt anger whenever he looked at Naruto and realized just how strong he had become. But it was just anger, fleeting and shallow. There was no true hate. He didn't hate Naruto. He didn't like Naruto. He was just there, as his teammate and comrade. A brother in arms. Somebody who would help him no matter what. Now he finally understood the anger. Naruto was a competition, a rival, somebody who could push him further, to get strong. He could rely on him. Sasuke snorted bitterly. All of it did not bode well with the old Sasuke. It was one thing to realize it was a completely different matter to act upon such a realization. His feelings could not change just like that. Those dark emotions swelling deep within his mind and his heart couldn't vanish with a flick of a magic wand. It was just not how the world functioned. Anyhow, he could sort these conflicting emotions later. He lightly slapped his cheeks. He had a match to win. Ellipsis. Next match, Sasuke Uchiha vs Rock Lee. Ellipsis. Sasuke landed on the wet soil with a determined expression on his face. He was no longer angry, he was not irritated, and he was not anxious. Just determined. Determined to prove his own value, just like Naruto did moments ago. Determined to show everybody that the Uchiha clan was not hailed as one of the strongest in the world for nothing. Determined to put his own skills to a test, to see for himself just how far he had gone since that nightmarish night all those years ago. A bit of annoyance briefly flickered across his face, however, when he saw the condition his opponent was in. Rock Lee was in no state to fight at full power. Hell, he barely looked to be able to fight at all. That was not how Sasuke had pictured his fight with the taijutsu expert to go. He swallowed the redundant emotion down his throat. It was irrelevant. It didn't really matter how well would his opponent fight. What was important was how he, Sasuke, was going to fight. He glanced at Hayate, and once the proctor started the match, he activated his Sharingan. He wasn't going to take any shortcuts to victory, and he certainly wasn't about to underestimate Rock Lee, no matter how tired he looked. The boy was too dangerous. With a vigor, Sasuke reached into his pockets and threw a barrage of shuriken at the other genin. Moving fast, he crossed the distance between them and aimed a series of punches at him. But Rock Lee, despite being exhausted and having some serious muscle problems, was still fast as a lightning and managed to avoid not only the shuriken but also almost every blow Sasuke threw at him. Only one of them came close to hitting him, and even that one just lightly touched his stomach before he noticed it and hastily pulled back. Sasuke saw it on his face then. Lee realized just how much trouble his body was giving him, but it seemed it only further steeled his own determination. The boy grimaced but, with gritted teeth, pushed himself and went on the offensive. The Uchiha prodigy quickly withdrew from his reach using a series of somersaults and threw a Fuma Shuriken at him while in midair. It forced the other boy to direct his attention towards avoiding it, and with that, his eyes missed Sasuke throwing a pair of kunai at trees on both of their sides. The second Fuma Shuriken followed soon after that, and along with it, 2 other kunai. But those kunai did not flew directly at Lee as Sasuke threw them sideways, to fly in a sort of a half circle. Lee felt some sort of a trap but was caught unprepared when Sasuke pulled at something, which caused the 2 kunai to change direction and make a circle around Lee's torso. Lee stared at his body in surprise when he felt something forcing his arms together. It was a ninja wire, wrapped around him. It prevented him from moving, and he spotted the kunai embed in the trees on either side connected to it. Hearing a fast approaching steps, he raised his head to see Sasuke running towards him. Sasuke didn't think just this much could win him the match, but if it could, he would take the chance. Before his fist could connect with the genin's jaw, He recognized the concentrated expression on Li's face. He's opening those gates, he thought in alarm, but it was too late to stop his arm. Fortunately, his fist managed to hit the jaw he intended to hit, but the force behind it, along with Li opening some gates, allowed the other boy to slip from the wire restricting him. With a loud yell, Li rolled in the air and, ricocheting from a tree trunk, shot towards Sasuke, who mentally cursed. Damn, I didn't think he could open them again. But still, I can still fight him. He was straining his eyes and the Sharingan in them to see Li's movements. It was blurry, but he could still see him. He didn't know how many gates Li opened, but it was certainly less than in his fight with Neji. Else he was sure he would have been seeing just a complete blur. Still, the speed with which Li was moving was making it hard to defend even after the rigorous training he had done for the past month. Sasuke felt a few hits connect and suppressed the groan trying to escape his lips. He wasn't going to last long if he continued to trade blows with this opponent. Slamming his foot on the wet ground, he discharged a surge of electricity from his body and forced Li to stop moving for an instant. He quickly used short amount of time to back off and prepare his next technique. A smirk came to his face as he glanced at the stand from where Naruto was watching his match. This is how you use it, he thought and took a deep breath. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. The orb of fire shot from his mouth at a higher speed than the one Naruto had used and almost managed to directly hit its target. But it did not matter. This was not the end as Sasuke built up his chakra again. He was itching to use the new technique Kakashi had taught him during the last month, but his logical side reminded him not to do it. That was a powerful jutsu. A ranked and Sasuke could only use it so much till he would exhaust all of his chakra reserves. Moreover, Li was too fast and there was a possibility he could avoid it. No, he would use a different one. The last new jutsu he had learned as a side effect of trying to master the stronger one. He shot from his position and ran towards Li to meet him again in an exchange of blows. But this time, he kept his right hand a bit behind him. He was still charging the technique and Li, having no way of sensing chakra, was unaware of it. Because of that, the boy allowed Sasuke to get closer and began his taijutsu dance around him. But it lacked its usual finesse, the exhaustion and injuries from his previous match finally hitting him. There were delays in the delivers of his kicks, twitches in his arm muscles before throwing a punch, and thanks to that, Sasuke was able to prepare his attack in a relative peace. He still received a punch to the thigh, but it was over. Lightning release. Electromagnetic murder. He thought as he put out his hands in front of him once Li came directly into his view. A wave of electricity rippled through the air between them and hit the other boy directly into his chest, causing his face to twist in agony and his smoking body to sail through the air like a bullet shot out of a pistol. Sasuke took a heavy breath, along with the rest of the audience as they all watched the outcome. The Uchiha also felt a drop in his reserves. He had put too much power into that one. He felt a chill in his body when his opponent remained still on the wet ground and the proctor, who landed next to him, quickly yelled out. Medics, hurry up. Sasuke gulped as Hayate stood up. This match is over. Winner. Sasuke Uchiha. Ellipsis. What's wrong with him? Sasuke asked once he limped close to medics surrounding Li. Due to the strong electric discharge, his heart has stopped beating. Hayate answered him, letting the medical ninja to do their job. When he saw the conflicted look on Sasuke's face, he shook his head. It's not, your fault. You were supposed to fight till the very end. Things like these happen, but, don't worry. He'll be alright. They waited for a long while, the rain that was still pouring down washing over their faces, and, after a moment, two other men landed next to them. Kakashi and Might Guy. You did well, Sasuke. Kakashi stated with a serious face. Might Guy stared at his own student with an unreadable expression. It took some time, but, finally, one medic stood up and turned to him. We managed to start his heart again, but he's got a long recovery ahead of him. Using the celestial gates repeatedly and to this extent in such a short amount of time took its toll on him. He probably didn't use it much in the past, am I correct? Might Guy gulped. Yes, I ordered Li not to use it lightly and labeled it forbidden for him unless he's in a serious fight. It is a dangerous technique. Is he going to be okay? His tone changed into one full of worry, but the medic smiled. Don't worry. Thanks to the strict training he underwent, his body is extremely durable. He will recover, it'll just take more time than usual. He has tissue fissures all over his body and some of his muscles are seriously torn, but that's something we can repair. Ellipsis. Amidst the loud cheering for Sasuke's victory, much louder than the one Naruto had received, Hayate walked into the center of the arena and raised his arm, trying to get the audience's attention. Due to the odd amount of participants, Gaara will advance to the next round by default. We will now have a truly short break, and after that, the last round will begin. It'll be an all-out fight between 3 remaining participants, Uzumaki Naruto, Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara. The audience accepted the news with an occasional shout, but most of the noise came from loud cheers, aimed at the young Uchiha. Ellipsis. In the cage stand, Sarutobi squirmed under the gaze of the Tsuchikage, who was extremely annoyed by the decision of letting Gaara advance to the final round just like that. As expected, the cage allowed it quite easily, which only further increased the old leader's ire. How nice it must be, having the Hokage on your side. Tsuchikage grumbled with a scowl. Nobody knew what to say to him, so they simply ignored the remark. Well, for now, I think we should review the 2 matches we have witnessed. Sarutobi said after clearing his throat. First one, Uzumaki Naruto and Tenten. My opinion is that while Tenten performed nicely and managed to catch her opponent, there's still something missing in her overall skill that would push her into a Chunin promotion. The cage rubbed his chin. Well, she obviously performed better in her first match. In her second, she foolishly used her strongest technique at the beginning, which robbed her of a chance of using it as a finishing blow. I'm not sure. I still see her as a skilled weapon user with a more than satisfying taijutsu. She also knows a bit of fuinjutsu. I say promote her. I say no, Tsuchikage said shortly. Kuretsuchi, standing behind him, rolled her eyes but said nothing. Well, I will consult with her Jonin instructor and make a decision after that. Next is Uzumaki Naruto. I think we can all agree that the boy is strong and quick-witted. His use of clones is amazing for a genin, and I see no reason not to promote him. Sarutobi said with closed eyes. In reality, he didn't really want to promote Naruto, he wanted him to stay a genin for a bit longer. But those were his personal feelings created from the years of taking care of the boy. He knew his own mind. Even if he waited years, he still wouldn't want to promote him, only if to spare him the missions he knew the boy would have to take. But as the leader of Konoha, he had to promote him. He couldn't afford such a waste of potential. Yes, I agree. Uzumaki is obviously a ninjutsu specialist, and we have already seen him use an earth element, fire element, and if I recall correctly, even a wind element. That makes 3 elements, which is rare for a Chunin, not to mention a genin. As you said, his use of clones is very coordinated and pre-planned, which makes him a terrible opponent for many shinobi. Additionally, it seems he has gained some knowledge on fuinjutsu too. He even managed to dispel a genjutsu cast by Hyuga in his previous match. There is no doubt in my mind he will be a perfect Chunin. The cage nodded in acknowledgement. I say N. Oh come on, Gramps. He's clearly too good for a genin. You can't refute that, Kuretsuchi exclaimed theatrically before the Tsuchikage could finish his sentence. The old leader snorted. Are you sure you're not interested in him too much? You're changing the subject. Am not you stupid granddaughter. You totally are, old man. Hokage watched the two of them bicker with a sigh. Meanwhile, behind him, a bowl of popcorn suddenly appeared in Genma's hands, and he started to eat them while watching the row with excited eyes as if he was watching a sport event. Gracefully ignoring them, Cage glanced at Sarutobi with a ghost smile. I think we can count that as a yes. Sarutobi barely suppressed his own amused smile. The leader of Sunagakure was mostly an emotionless man, but sometimes, he certainly had that mischievous bit in him. As with Tenten, I'll make the final decision after talking with her Jonin instructor. Moving on to the second match. First, Rock Lee. The Hokage trailed off with a thoughtful expression. I think he should remain a genin for a bit longer. He continued briefly. For now, I agree. His taijutsu is exceptional, and coupled with his ability to use celestial gates, he could most likely take on any Chunin, but that's all he has. Once the after effects from using the gates kick in, he's in trouble. But it's not that much a disadvantage. Keep him a genin for a few more months, and once he's accustomed to using the gates, promote him. The cage said and then turned to the last cage in the booth. Tsuchikage, your opinion. The grumpy leader of Iwagakure was no longer bickering with his granddaughter but still appeared to be disgruntled. With a sharp nod of his head, he answered. What you two said. All right, that takes us to Sasuke Uchiha. With this match I think he managed to convince me that, indeed, he should be promoted. He is probably the best well-rounded genin from all the ones that have managed to pass into finals. Sarutobi continued. Both the cage and Tsuchikage nodded without any further words. It seemed the final round of the Chunin exams was going to happen without any complications after all. Such a false, naive feeling. Funnily enough, not one person in the cage's booth noticed the slight shift in the behavior of the cage's bodyguards, despite all of them being elite shinobi. Not even the cage himself, who remained the same. Ellipsis. It was finally time for the last match to take place and 3 genin landed in the middle of the arena, each ready to do what was necessary. Their concentration was at maximum, not even the heavy downpour could make them lose it for even a moment. Stakes were too high. Hayate, the proctor, raised his arms. Begin. Each genin quickly jumped backwards to create a space between them. It was foolish to just rush forward without a plan. It was time to form a strategy. Even though the break before this last match lasted for more than 5 minutes and, logically, one would think that being from the same village Naruto and Sasuke would have formed some sort of a plan on how to deal with Gaara, the truth lied elsewhere. The two of them neither looked at each other nor spoke to each other. They completely refused any sort of communication. It was not because of some grudge or some childish antic. It was just because they wanted to fully enjoy the thrill of fighting in such a match. But that kind of thrill never came. Just when Sasuke finished formulating his plan and was preparing to start it, thanks to his activated Sharingan, he noticed something odd within the audience and stopped in mid-step. In the next instant, a heavy mist filled the whole arena, suffocating the 3 genin with its deadly thickness. Sasuke, tell me it's your doing. Naruto loudly stated. He felt a chill creeping on his spine and it reminded him of something that had happened a few months ago. It's not me, Sasuke replied, no longer even remotely sure where his teammate was. Death is coming, Gaara stated in an odd tone that made Naruto's and Sasuke's blood curl. It took him a short while, but the Uchiha understood the situation and the familiar sensation of dangerous breath creeping on his neck fairly quickly. When he did, he cursed. Damn it, I think this mist is similar to one we came across in Wave. Ellipsis. Sitting above the wall surrounding the village, Konoha shinobi led by Ibiki Morino carefully watched over the east entrance, their minds uneasy and restless. Even Ibiki, a man with more experience than all the others next to him put together, had a bad feeling in his gut. Maybe it was the heavy rain that had started in the morning and was still getting thicker, or maybe it was his instinct telling him there was something wrong. He felt like being watched. He felt like an unaware prey getting stalked by its predator. Or maybe he was just paranoid. What the Hokage had told them at the last shinobi meeting had unsettled his mind. Bullshit. He mentally refused such a thing. Ibiki was far too good to be fooled by his own fear. No, there was definitely something going on. Seeing Jiraiya the Sannin rushing towards the south entrance with a hardened expression on his face only further cemented his bad feeling. The man had told him nothing alarming was yet happening, but Ibiki couldn't shake that coldness in his stomach. The chill in his blood. Then it happened. The earth itself shook. It was just a small tremor and he was the only one who noticed it. But when the second, a bit stronger, tremor followed, his men noticed it too and exchanged worried glances. Before the ground below the wall exploded, he felt the foreign chakra. Everybody, spread out. His yell warned the men in the last moment, and when the large snakes erupted from the soil, splashing mud and wet clay all around them, they were able to react to the threat in time. Warn the others. It finally begins. Ibiki ducked under a vicious swipe of the snake's tail and yelled towards the Anbu, hidden somewhere near. That was all he could do before he was forced to take cover. These are not normal snakes, I can feel chakra from them. They must be summons. And who uses snake summon? Orochimaru. Damn it, that inhuman traitor is really doing it. He cursed and involuntarily trembled. Orochimaru was one of the few men that could invoke a fear this great in him. He glanced at his men battling the snakes and gritted his teeth. You've made a great mistake, Orochimaru. Even you can't take down Konoha. But then, a mist that had been perpetually seen in the distance quickly moved towards them as if guided by a machine. Ibiki grabbed his kunai. He understood the implications. Shit, it really is them. Ellipsis. Once the mist descended upon the arena, the atmosphere within the cage's booth took a drastic turn. No longer was the Hokage smiling. His expression hardened and he finally looked like a leader of a shinobi village. Behind him, his bodyguards tensed, ready to spring into action at any moment. Though even they were powerless when a smoke bomb stealthily exploded right in the center of the booth. The swishing sound of rapid movements was a clear sign that something was happening, but it was only after the smoke dissipated that the situation became obvious. With a hand under the Hokage's neck, one of the cage's bodyguards calmly stood a bit away from the rest of the shinobi, his smirk jumping from one face to another. "What is the meaning of this, Cage?" the Tsuchikage asked in a mildly alarmed tone. All-eyed turned to the leader of Sunagaku who, despite being visibly angered, managed to remain fairly calm. "I see, so this is how you plan to do this, Orochimaru," the Cage stated, shocking everyone present with his words. Sarutobi, so far trying to be quiet and calm, carelessly turned his head a bit, to glance at the person that was holding him. "Kukuku, so you noticed, huh, Cage?" The man holding Sarutobi laughed and pressed his free palm onto his face. In the next moment, the face of the Cage's bodyguard dissolved to show a completely different man. Orochimaru of the Sannin. Nobody moved a single muscle. The danger of the madman accidentally killing the Hokage was too much. But the leader of Konoha had questions. Not for Orochimaru. They knew he had been planning something. He had questions for Cage. "Cage, if you could explain. I admire your bravado, sensei, but try not to move your head too much. I might hurt you sooner than I wanted to." Orochimaru laughed and glanced at the Cage. With a sharp nod of his head, he allowed him to talk. He wasn't exactly in a hurry. The situation was far too entertaining to just go and kill everybody. He was confident he could amuse them for a while, to let them know what was going on and why. Seeing the realization dawning upon them was going to be pretty entertaining for him. The Cage narrowed his eyes. From the corner of his eye, he saw the Hokage's bodyguards glaring at him. He needed to convince them he was on their side or things were going to get ugly. "I'll give you short version. About 3 months ago, I was approached by Orochimaru with a proposition of joining forces in invading Konoha." He began explaining without any preface. On a side, he saw Tsuchikage frowning. "I'll be honest, it was a tempting offer. Due to the economic decline brought about by the Land of Wind's daimyo using the shinobi of Konoha, the situation in Suna was bad. I almost agreed but realized in time it was a foolish plan with lots of holes. The whole thing smelled of a trap. Orochimaru is a famous traitor and I had worries of him betraying us. So I backed away. That was when he tried to kill me." At that part, Orochimaru laughed again, letting his long tongue to slither around his mouth in a hungry fashion. "He almost got me, but in the neck of the time, my son, Gaara, interfered with the fight. Don't ask me why, as I don't know either. The important thing is, I survived. But during the battle, this man poisoned me. It took me 2 whole months to recover, even with the help of our most renewed medics. I still have a throbbing scar on my face because of it. So that's why you insisted on the delay of the Chunin exams?" The Hokage asked, confused. Something was amiss. "Partially, yes. I knew that Orochimaru wouldn't back down from the plan even with me knowing it. He is far too confident. And because of it, I now possessed a way to save my village. I insisted on delaying the Chunin exams, because I wanted to be here at all costs, because I wanted to intervene in this invasion, and because by helping saving Konoha I would gain a powerful ally in the process. An ally that could help Sunagaku. A plan worthy of Cage." The Tsuchikage muttered with a nod. "But why you didn't inform Konoha?" Genma could stop himself from raising a question to Cage. "I couldn't. I feared traitors within Konoha. Within Suna, nobody beside me knew about this. Not even my men. That is why I came here in full health." The Cage resolutely answered. "Clever, Cage, very clever. Seeing Sensei squirming under my arm is making me very happy, so I'll tell you one thing. You were right about the traitors in Konoha. Kukuku. Orochimaru laughed, but his words sounded everything but cheerful. On the contrary, they brought anxiety and anger in the hearts of Sarutobi and his bodyguards. Traitors. In Konoha, when a sound of explosions coming from afar reached the arena, Orochimaru stopped laughing and settled for a grin. Well, it seems the plan is in full motion, so if you'll excuse us, me and Sensei have a thing to settle. He tightened his grip on the Hokage, causing his bodyguards to stiffen, and glanced at the cage. I believe you're eager to stop me, but I think you'll find yourself unable to do so. Another smoke bomb later, Orochimaru jumped high above the booth and, along with 4 other shinobi, landed atop the roof. Damn it! One of Hokage's bodyguards cursed loudly and hurried to go after them. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. Even Orochimaru wouldn't try to invade Konoha all by himself. If Suna or Iwa isn't helping him, then Genma stopped his comrade and bit on the Senbon needle he had been chewing for the last few hours. Even the cage became alert after the Tokubetsu Jonin stated the obvious aloud. The answer came shortly when a large man in a dark cloak with clouds on it roughly landed in the booth and with one swipe of an enormous sword forced the Hokage's bodyguards to jump away as he faced cage. The eyes of the Suna leader squirmed in contempt as soon as he realized the identity of the newcomer. Kisame Hoshigaki, the monster of the Kurigakure. The man with shark-like appearance grinned widely. Pleasure to meet you, cage. He gripped the odd-looking sword held in his hands tightly and jumped in the air. In the next moment, an explosion rocketed the cage's booth. Ellipsis. Ino, I want you to take Sakura and go hide somewhere. Kakashi, more of them coming. Kakashi leaned backwards and, with a swipe of kunai held in both of his hands, instantly took out 2 enemies closing up on him from behind. He ignored the droplets of blood falling on the skin of his face and turned back to the wide-eyed blonde, who was supporting unconscious Sakura. Listen, you can't do anything here. I can't break the genjutsu on Sakura because of reasons right now, and I want her safe. Do you understand, Ino? Why, yes. The girl gulped, but the trust Kakashi was putting into her made her nod confidently. But there were more worries hidden in her nervous eyes. What about Sasuke-kun and Naruto? Kakashi blocked the incoming shuriken and briefly glanced at the arena, covered in a thick and impenetrable mist. They'll be fine. It's not their first time fighting in such conditions, and both of them are strong. Don't worry about them. He gave her an eye smile, which prompted her to go, but in reality, he was a bit worried about his 2 favorite students. Most unyouthful thing from Kurigakure. Guy, fighting not so far away from him, muttered bitterly as he threw a decimating blow into his opponent's solar plexus. The punch immediately knocked his enemy out, but the force behind it continued further and created a gaping hole in the wall behind the, now, unconscious man. This was an exception, but Kakashi agreed with his Jonin friend. The village hidden in the mist, Kurigakure, truly did it. They joined forces with Orochimaru. There was no other explanation for what was happening all around them. Naruto, Sasuke, remember how you fought in Wave and, please, survive this. Kakashi. The yell from Guy sounded a bit different from the previous ones, and Kakashi instantly turned to the man. Guy was pointing at the roof above the cage's booth, where a considerable purple barrier erected itself. Kakashi narrowed his eyes, both of them, to try and see what was inside, and felt something akin to anxiety rising within him when he saw it. Anbu needs to hurry up. You don't have time to stop and stare, Konoha shinobi. A sly voice came from behind them, and both Kakashi and Guy spun around to find a young shinobi from Kurigakure with white hair watching them closely. Next to Kakashi, Guy momentarily stiffened. What is it? Kakashi quietly asked the other Jonin. Guy shook his head. I have a feeling I met this guy a long time ago. Ellipsis. Kuretsuchi cursed as she sailed through the air, the shockwave from the explosion in the cage's booth pushing her away. There was no ground beneath her feet. The only place to land was the arena covered with dense haze. She was in no way worried about her grandfather. He was the Tsuchikage, after all. For a moment after she landed, she was overwhelmed by the lack of her senses caused by the mist and reacted reflexively when something touched her. Her fist collided with something soft and she heard a cough. Ow, is that you, Kuretsuchi? Uzumaki. Kuretsuchi rolled her eyes. Of all the places she could have landed, the fate caused her to land next to the blonde genin. Why can you tell it's me just because of a punch? No idea. Quiet, both of you. Sasuke's voice, coming from somewhere on the duo's right, came as a hiss. Before Kuretsuchi could say anything, Naruto opened his mouth first. What is it? Do you see something? Because of the heavy mist, Naruto knew his only chance to find out what was going on the outside was to rely on Sasuke's Sharingan. But just like in the Wave Country when Kakashi used his own, even Sasuke's Sharingan couldn't see well through the chakra-filled haze. I don't know, but I think something is coming. As soon as the Uchiha said that, a strong pressure of wind shot from the center of the arena. It seemed something landed there. The sudden gale forced the mist to tear, and, after long minutes, Naruto and the others were finally able to see something. The mist was still covering the corners of the arena, so their sights were limited. But it was enough to see what landed in the middle of the arena. And what was in the middle of the arena was enough to draw all of their attention to itself. Even Gaara's. Next to Naruto, Kuretsuchi felt large beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Are you kidding me? That's Yagura. Naruto and Sasuke glanced at each other and then at the young-looking person in front of them. It was the Mizukage, the current leader of Kurigakure. And he was staring at the four of them with clear intention to fight. We're dead. Feeling apprehensive, Naruto didn't even turn his head to Kuretsuchi as he opened his mouth. If what she said about the person in front of them was true, even a tiny distraction would cost him his life. Why, you sure? Are you absolutely sure this is the Mizukage? With a brief nod, the Chunin from Iwa confirmed his concerns. I'm sure. I saw him in the past. The person in front of us is undeniably the current Mizukage. She added quietly but also loud enough for the others in the arena to hear. And as soon as Kuretsuchi's voice faded into the sound of rain falling all around them, Naruto saw Sasuke doing the same thing he was doing. Both of them clenched their fists and warily took a step backwards. They were many things, but Sasuke and Naruto were definitely not suicidal. And going against a cage was surely a suicide. They had engaged in a fight with one of the Sannin, a shinobi that's around the level of a cage before, and both of them still remembered the result. They had managed to escape, but only thanks to great amounts of luck, sacrifice, and their opponent not aiming to kill them. No bloodlust. Gaara's voice, flat and hollow, shot through the arena to raise a suspicious fact about the short figure of the Mizukage. He's right. That's strange. Kuretsuchi muttered when she swallowed the initial shock of seeing the leader of Kurigakure land in front of her. We have no time for that. He's preparing a jutsu, Sasuke exclaimed, mostly trying to warn Naruto. He had been carefully watching the Mizukage with his Sharingan ever since the man landed there, and when he perceived what appeared to be an influx of chakra, he cursed. So much for trying to avoid fighting the man. In the next instant, a gigantic vortex of water formed around Yagura, causing Naruto to pale in fear what was about to come next. A large torrent of water then shot out of the vortex. It extended over a large scale, surged upon impact, and rose up to several dozen meters high only to collapse down, forming massive waves all around as it did. It took Naruto a split second to recall seeing such a technique before, but that had happened atop a lake. Even though it was heavily raining, creating such a large waterfall of water was a no small feat. Only after seeing Gaara enveloping himself in some cocoon of sand he snapped out of his thoughts and placed a hand on the ground. Earth release. Earth Dome Jutsu. Loads of water crashed down in the arena and swallowed the whole area in a newly formed mini lake. From underneath the surface, a blonde genin shot upwards, wet, roughed up and covered in mud. Crap, that was close. My dome managed to block some of the impact, but it still got destroyed. I forgot water can carry such force. He panted and hastily glanced around to see Sasuke lodged on one of the arena's walls along with Kuretsuchi. Gaara was nowhere to be seen. We should retreat. There's no way we stand a chance against a cage. Naruto loudly called out to them, but saw Sasuke shaking his head with a large frown on his face. We can't. What? Why? Sasuke, being above the level of the mist that still stubbornly remained around the arena, pointed at the spectator stands. It seemed something had completely changed his opinion of the fight. Because it seems the village is under attack and most of the spectators are under some sleep-inducing genjutsu. His words struck Naruto like a hammer. Gravity seals. Release. He mentally released his seals and joined the other two on the wall. He looked above the haze to see Konoha shinobi fighting an unknown force. Truthfully, he could see Kakashi battling many enemies at once. What is going on? Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. Kuretsuchi stated, embarrassed. In the next minute, she shortly informed the two Konoha genin of what had happened in the cage's booth. Orochimaru. Naruto growled quietly. That's why I said we can't retreat. We have to at least try to keep the Mizukage in the arena until reinforcement arrive, or he will cause a lot of collateral damage and possibly kill everyone that's under genjutsu. Sasuke quickly said. With a surprised glance, Naruto turned to his teammate. You see. No, I don't really care for the civilians. Sasuke sharply stopped the blonde from saying anything. He hastily continued as if he struggled with pointing out his intentions. But I couldn't see Sakura there. She can still be somewhere among those who are asleep. And I won't let her get harmed because of my incompetence again, because I was too weak again. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to face him when the time comes. He snarled, the Sharingan in his eyes spinning rapidly as he stared at Naruto. The blonde genin found himself glued to the movements of the tomos in his teammate's dojutsu and felt, despite his mind's logic screaming at him, his reason to waver. He looked down, at the center of the arena, where a whirlpool began to form and reveal an unharmed Mizukage. Closing his eyes he nodded to Sasuke. Fine, damn it. Leaving the surprised Kuretsuchi on the wall, the Konoha duo shot down and landed on the turbulent water surface just as Yagura ascended from the bottom. Not looking at what his teammate was doing, Naruto prepared his jutsu. Our opponent uses water element techniques of high level. The whole arena is covered, so I have no access to earth element. Using fire element would be useless, so that leaves me with wind element techniques and non-elemental techniques. He's a cage, so no point in using anything weaker than C rank. Let's go. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. He thought as he formed a seal, after which 100 clones of him popped into existence. All over the arena. Naruto, avoid the water surface for a moment. Sasuke exclaimed. Doing just that, Naruto noticed a spark traveling across the liquid toward the cage. Giving a mental nod to his clones, he ordered all of them to grab their shuriken. I still can't do shuriken shadow clone technique, but since I created my clones using a similar technique, the shuriken they have on them should be just as physical as they are. He made a mental note to learn the jutsu at all costs in the future. Now, he yelled, and 101 volleys of shuriken flew at the Mizukage's position. At the same moment he saw the spark from Sasuke closing in on the man. A wall of water rose all around the cage, encompassing him inside but also shielding him from every single projectile Naruto threw at him. Damn. Gah. Naruto hastily glanced at his side just in time to see Sasuke getting struck by some invisible attack, and the genin was thrown backwards. Sasuke. I'm fine. Focus. He somehow got me with my own attack. The Uchiha yelled back after getting back on his feet. Naruto frowned and turned back to see a powerful-looking torrent of water sailing through the air straight at him. Oh, damn, he muttered and, using his best reflexes gained by training with seals, leaned backwards to see the attack fly over him. Thinking he was safe, he began straightening his back only to get hit by a second torrent. The force of the impact knocked the wind out of him and carried him across the arena. Before his body could crash into the concrete wall, Kuretsuchi grabbed him and awkwardly slowed him down. Honestly, going against a cage like it was a regular thing, she groaned when she pushed him away from her. Holding his stomach to prevent himself from puking his guts out, Naruto breathed heavily. Thanks. Bam. In the distance, with his Sharingan spinning, Sasuke jumped above the water surface an instant before it exploded in a shower of hot steam. He landed next to them and quickly stuck his scalded calf into water to cool it off. So, how's the plan going? Kuretsuchi asked lightheartedly. Great. Just great. Nothing is getting through. Sasuke sighed when he felt the cold liquid on the skin of his calf. Thought so. She snorted when Naruto forcefully swallowed the contents of his stomach that had jumped all the way to his pharynx. Back at the center of the arena, the wall of water fell down, revealing the Mizukage with his cheeks inflated and staring at the three of them. Jump away. It's the B-bullet jutsu. Naruto tried to warn them while trying to get hold of his breathing. It seemed the attack was about to leave the Mizukage's mouth when a small amount of sand enveloped the man's left leg. Sand waterfall funeral. For an instant, the leg looked deformed and a bit of blood flowed out of it. It was accompanied with a quiet groan of the Mizukage just as Gaara appeared behind him. He was alive? Sasuke asked, looking conflicted. Kuretsuchi snorted again. If you think that waterfall jutsu at the beginning was enough to take Gaara of the desert down, then you wouldn't have stood any chance against him. That guy is a monster. Naruto didn't like the tone of her voice when she said that, but left it at that. He was thankful to the Suna-genin that he showed up when he did. Good, if that's really true, maybe we could keep the Mizukage here for a few more minutes. Sasuke muttered and gulped down a large amount of air only to send a strong fireball in Yagura's direction. Somehow reading his intentions, Naruto bit his lip and finally stabilized his breathing so he could take a heavy intake of air too. With inflated cheeks, he spewed out a fast-traveling strike. Wind release. Air bullet. Jutsu. You want to keep his attention on you, huh? Kuretsuchi mumbled and nodded to herself. She formed a single hand seal and her cheeks too got inflated. In the next second, she spat a series of football-sized orbs of water that flew at the Mizukage in high speed. Next to her, Naruto raised one eyebrow. She can use water element. But his thoughts were interrupted when they all heard Gaara's voice from the distance and Yagura received attacks from all four of them head-on. The collection of three elements in their attacks, along with their chakra within them, resulted in an explosion that forced them look away. Something is off, Kuretsuchi stated with a frown. Seeing Naruto looking at her confused, she elaborated further. The Mizukage. Something is wrong with him. He's not giving off any bloodlust and fights on a lot lower level than he's supposed to. He should have evaded not just our attack but also the one from Gaara that heavily injured his leg. Maybe we should be glad for that. Sasuke muttered with narrowed eyes as he tried to look through the smoke. Maybe. Kuretsuchi replied in a low voice, causing Naruto's brow to crease in a frown. What was she trying to imply? Though he had no time to think about it when he felt Sasuke stiffen. What the hell is that? The Uchiha Genin whispered with an unreadable expression, gaining attention of both Naruto and Kuretsuchi. What is it? What do you see? Bam. A second explosion rocketed the arena and the shockwave from it caused all the smoke and also the remnants of the mist to disappear in a hurried fashion, leaving only a single person standing in its center. Gaara was etched into the wall opposite of Naruto and the others, a bit of sand falling off his skin. As the trio saw the Mizukage, they felt a chill on their skin. Quote! Sasuke stared at him in shock, not understanding the situation, while Kuretsuchi had a deep scowl on her face. So he plans on using it. But it was Naruto who was shocked the most. That chakra, it feels familiar. Don't tell me he's the same as me. He is. From its texture, that's the chakra of the three tails. Kyuubi unexpectedly said within his mind as to confirm his thoughts. Yagura was standing in the center of the arena, his whole body, from head to toe, covered in a reddish cloak of heavy chakra that gave off a suffocating aura, strong enough to make everybody in the arena sweat. One protrusion of the chakra coming off from his lower back, looking so much like a tail, moved from side to side, giving the man a beastly appearance. Yeah, I forgot to mention, but the Mizukage is also the current Jinchuriki of Sanbi, the Three Tails. Kuretsuchi said with a dry voice. Sasuke turned to her with confused eyes, but the Uchiha Genin quickly added pieces together and the expression on his face changed when he realized the meaning of her words. He said nothing, but it was obvious he was a bit thunderstruck. When Kuretsuchi noticed the faces of the boys next to her, she blinked. Why are you so surprised? It's not like it's a secret. That's why I thought you were crazy for going to fight him. Now tell me you don't know that Gaara of the desert is a Jinchuriki of Ikibi, the One Tails, too. Receiving another mental punch to the gut, Naruto stared in front of him with his eyes wide open. Gaara too. Naruto. Sasuke spoke to him, forcing the blonde to turn to his teammate. The Uchiha had, once again, an unreadable expression on his face. Do you have any seal that could help us? I know you're studying them and you showed before that you can use them quite efficiently. Blinking rapidly, Naruto momentarily shook off other irrelevant thoughts and actually though about Sasuke's question. However, with a sad smile, he had to negatively shake his head. No, I mean I could probably use one of them, but there is no way we can get that close to him. Watch out. Kuretsuchi's warning yell came too late and the two Konoha Genin felt a lot of pain in their bodies when two large orbs of water struck them dead on. It seemed Yagura had decided to go back on the offensive and charged against them, spewing blobs of water while moving. Evading the initial assault, Kuretsuchi tried to slow him down, but the Mizukage easily dodged her Fire Dragon jutsu and jumped in the air to get on the same level as she was on. Damn, she groaned when she tried to block an incoming spinning kick to her right side, only to feel the bone in her forearm creaking, even though she managed to coat her arm with a layer of rock. The force of the hit sent her flying into the wall, but she felt she crashed into something a lot softer. It was Naruto's shadow clone that instantly turned into smoke after absorbing most of the impact for Kuretsuchi. The kunoichi glanced down to see Naruto giving her thumbs up with a pained expression. Now we're even. Yeah, thanks. Kuretsuchi thanked while trying to shake off a bit of dizziness. A roar caught their attention and they raised their heads to see Gaara finally got off the wall and was trying to catch the Mizukage with his sand. If we cooperated with him, we'd have a bigger chance, Kuretsuchi stated. Breathing off some of the damage, Sasuke slowly stood up. Maybe, but as it stands, we have already stalled him for quite a long while, I hope. He wheezed. Just as he said that, Gaara's body sailed by them and crashed into the wall behind them. Cursing quietly, they shifted their sights back onto Mizukage to see him rapidly closing in on them, massive amounts of water gathering around him. Frantically, they tried to disperse in all directions, but a volley of water bullets began to assault them, making it hard to dodge them, not to mention to leave the area. Damn it, what to do? Naruto thought in panic. You could use my power. Kyuubi's voice sounded from within his mind again, and Naruto gritted his teeth. Maybe the Kyuubi was right. Using its power could help him immensely. But he wanted to prove his worth using his own skills only so much. But it's pointless once you're dead, right? And you don't want to die yet, do you? Those words caused him to feel anxious. He could do it. He could use the Kyuubi. The two of them made sort of a truce, and Naruto knew the fox would grant him some of its chakra. So why did his breath get so fast when he just even thought about using it? Is it because the Uchiha would see you using it and he'd now understand what you are? Is it because you're still afraid he'd condemn you for what you are? Is it because you feel like he's becoming more than just a teammate? That he's becoming something like a friend? And you don't want to lose such a bond? Naruto growled. He didn't want to think about this stuff right now. The Mizukage was still getting closer. He had no time for sorting his feelings. I hope you still remember our meeting in Wave. I told you I want to see you demolish the Uchiha, and hell won't be enough to hide you from me if you intend to break this promise. The roar in his mind only further worsened the already bad situation for the blonde, as he wanted to roar himself. I won't break the promise. Naruto knew. He knew that with how things were progressing with Team 7, he wouldn't be able to beat his teammate half to death anymore. He wouldn't be able to bring himself to do it. Only if something really bad happened. He briefly glanced at the boy with the Sharingan. The Kyuubi was right, the bond that was developing between the two of them was slowly becoming important to him. It did sound wrong, Naruto admitted. The two of them did not see each other during the past month at all. But it was that time they had spent separately that only further cemented the bond. The bond that Naruto needed just as much as he needed the one with Jiraiya. The bond that Sasuke needed just as well. Otherwise, he would plunge back into his own world where only the darkness left by his brother resided. His brother, Itachi Uchiha. A stray thought entered Naruto's mind and caused him to form a tiny smile, despite the situation. I won't break our promise, Kyuubi. But you didn't specify which Uchiha you want to see demolished. How about Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's brother and even a bigger genius? The Kyuubi went silent for what seemed like an eternity but was only a split second. Ha ha ha, you're a ridiculous brat, but sure. I'll take it. Naruto's smile widened. He was thankful for the demon's benevolence. However, because of the Kyuubi's earlier words, he realized one other thing. One thing he should have recalled as soon as he saw the Mizukage landing in front of him, what Haku had told him at that bridge in Wave. That she had been born in a snowy village in the Mist Country. That its leader was responsible for her suffering. Naruto clenched his fists while the Mizukage was still closing in on them. That was it. He was seriously considering using the Kyuubi's chakra after all. This fight just got personal. But they all got saved when a different person shot through the air and repelled Yagura with a vicious kick. I see you got over your head. Naruto felt his heart jumping out of his chest from relief. Jiraiya, the man with long silver hair, descended from the air to stand between the four young shinobi and the rampaging Mizukage, his wide grin not seen by his godson. Jiraiya, Kuretsuchi whispered to herself before her eyebrows shot upwards in awe. You mean the Jiraiya, the toad sage? She asked with her mouth agape. Hearing the wonder in the Iwa Chunan's voice, Jiraiya almost puffed out his chest in pride but stopped himself in the last moment. The situation was quite serious. He didn't have the luxury to be a comedic relief. Listen, the village is under attack and I know Naruto. I already sent help to the Hokage. Moreover, it seems the plan to invade Konoha did not bode well with the whole Kurigakure. He said calmly and prepared himself when he saw Yagura slowly getting back on his feet. Kuretsuchi, we're leaving. From high above the arena the Tsuchikage called out to his granddaughter in a tone that gave no room for objections, startling the Kunoichi and causing her to glance up. The leader of Iwagakure was hovering in the air with his arms crossed. But Kuretsuchi still tried to argue, but he gave her no room. No buts. This is not our fight, he said in a final tone and glanced at Jiraiya. I helped your shinobi and as you can see, my granddaughter risked her life to do the same. I hope Konoha will remember it in the future. Giving a dissatisfied look to her grandfather, Kuretsuchi looked at Naruto and nodded to him before she jumped on the wall and ran on it all the way to its top, where she joined the Tsuchikage. Old weasel, Jiraiya muttered and ducked under a swipe, courtesy of the Mizukage, who closed on him when he wasn't looking. Spinning around, he tried to kick the man away but felt something hot slowly burning his ankle. It was the reddish chakra from the three tails and the sage withdrew his leg only to kick higher with his other one. The Mizukage flew backwards once again. He was right, this doesn't feel like I'm fighting a cage. Jiraiya muttered to himself when a small explosion came from a distance. It happened on the roof close to the one where the purple barrier stood. When the smoke from the explosion cleared, two figures fighting were seen. Father Gaara, who pried himself out of the wall in the meantime, was the first one to recognize one of the two men. With an eerie grin, he began to incomprehensibly whisper to himself in a way that made Naruto's and Sasuke's skin crawl. Gathering his sand, he shot up in the air and towards his father. Jiraiya frowned. He felt the bloodlust the kid gave off once he said that one word. Jerking his head, he glanced at Naruto and his teammate. He wished he had other choice since he didn't want Naruto anywhere near the man fighting the Kazekage at all. You two go after him and stop him. I think he wants to kill his father. Don't let him do that. Can you do it? Naruto turned to Sasuke and the two of them nodded to each other. Yes, we can. Ellipsis. Shortly before the invasion began, Jiraiya jumped from building to a building, heading towards the commotion at the southern entrance of Konoha. He just left the Hokage's mountain, but being the sage, he was already nearing his destination. Without using the binoculars, he was able to see the two guards, Kotetsu and Izumo, arguing with a certain someone that had red hair. The toad sage kicked the roof and sped up. It was the woman from the photo he had handed to Hokage some time ago. It seemed she was already here. And since she was trying to come straight through the entrance, it meant one thing. Jiraiya had been wrong. He frowned. He didn't like being wrong. Thankfully, he was already there. Mei Terumi, I presume. The youthful-looking woman spun around to face the sage with a restless expression. Yes, I'm Jiraiya the Sannin. She stopped talking and blinked twice to assure herself what she was seeing was the reality. Jiraiya-sama, thank God you're here. Kotetsu Hagane, a chunin with long, spiky, black hair, sighed tiredly. It looked like quarreling with Mei mentally exhausted him. Jiraiya nodded to him and his partner, Izumo Kamizuki, with a serious gaze. I'll take over. You can return to your positions, he said and watched the two chunin walk back to their posts. Then he turned to the almost frantically looking woman and motioned her to take a step further away from them. I can see you're really determined to tell me something, but before you do, call out the others. He stared somewhere outside of the entrance. Ah, yes, I apologize, I didn't mean them to hide, it's just a bad habit. Mei said and sharply waved with her left hand, causing a small group consisting of 12 shinobi to reveal themselves. These are my men. She glanced back at the sage with a hard stare. I'll be short, Jiraiya-san. I came to warn you because Kurigakure is about to invade Konoha. She said calmly, but her fingers trembled when standing in front of the legendary Sannin. Jiraiya's eyebrows shot high until they almost disappeared in his hairline. In a matter of an instant, a realization dawned upon him. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle began to make sense. I see. He narrowed his eyes. I hope you do realize I could kill you all just for making such a statement. Feeling her men stiffen, Mei quickly nodded. Yes, but the time is too short and so I have no other choice than to be straightforward. Will you listen to me before you do anything? Staring into her eyes, Jiraiya didn't even allow himself to look down at her assets. What a sad day for the number one pervert, he thought, but he had no other choice. He couldn't be a perv right now. Konoha needed him to be the Toad Sage. The woman in front of him was also strong enough to beat some sense into him if he tried it. She was, after all, a well-known Jonin-level kunoichi from Kurigakure, who possessed not just one but two Kekkei Genkei. Talk. For a moment, Mei looked incredibly relieved. However, she drew a deep breath and began explaining right away while motioning one of her men to come closer. This is, don't bother, I know who this man is. Ow. The hunter nin of Kurigakure. Jiraiya acknowledged the presence of a man with blue hair and one eye covered with an eye patch with a wave of his hand so the kunoichi wouldn't stop explaining. Right, I assume you are aware of the situation that has been in our country for quite some time now, so I won't bother explaining it. She said and watched Jiraiya nod. Of course, being a Toad Sage, he was well aware of the civil wars that had been ruining the country for more than a decade now. The bloody reign of Yagura, the fourth Mizukage, was infamous for its unusual cruelty. Due to many wars, in which clans with bloodline abilities prevailed against regular shinobi, such clans became hated. This hate was also the reason for the most recent civil war. Yagura seemed hell-bent on exterminating anybody with it, save for a few chosen individuals. Let's just say that me, Ao and my men have been trying to fight against Yagura's reign. However, thanks to Ao and his acquired mastery with his Byakugan, we came to a rather shocking realization in the past year. Even though we probably should have expected something like that, she pointed at the man, who bowed a little. Jiraiya's eye twitched at the mention of the Byakugan. The man, Ao, had obtained it after he had defeated a member of the Hyuga clan. The case was still extremely bothering the clan's elders. He shifted his focus back on Mei. We found out that Yagura was under some sort of a genjutsu. And not just for a few weeks. He had been under it for years. Now that was unexpected. No, unexpected is too weak of a word. It's shocking. Forget the fact that barely any genjutsu has such long-lasting effects. Yagura is also a Jinchuriki, one with a perfect control over his Biju. The amount of genjutsu that could work on such a person, I could count them on the fingers of one hand. Jiraiya frowned deeply. Naturally, we tried to undo it, and when we were unable to do so, we attempted to discover the caster of the genjutsu. But to no avail, though we never gave up and still fought. Then, a few months ago, Ao noticed there was something off with the genjutsu. She trailed off and motioned Ao to talk. Yes, I have certainly been able to discover some fluctuations within the illusion cast on him. At first it was not much and I didn't think much of it. But after Yagura began to give weird orders to his men, I decided to look closer. To this day I can't really tell what is going on, but I suspect somebody cast another genjutsu on him and this new one is overlapping with the older one. It's as if he's being subtly compelled to do something while the older genjutsu is still in effect. It's complicated. What is important is that soon after I noticed these inconsistencies, Yagura and his men started to prepare for something. Only in the last few days we found out that these preparations were meant for invading Konoha. He went quiet and allowed Mei to take the mantle again. Yes, and despite the fact that we have been in a civil war, me and my men do not want to see Kurigakure, our home village, getting destroyed. Which will be, without a doubt, the result of this invasion. Therefore, we came to warn you and to fight on your side, and we hope that with this action, you and your Hokage could spare our village a complete destruction. Looking at the kunoichi, who, along with her men, was bowing deeply, Jiraiya felt a strong headache coming. With all these new information, he could see almost the whole picture. Kurigakure was the one that had allied itself with Orochimaru and their intention was to invade Konoha together. What would Kiri gain from it? the sage didn't know, but he suspected Orochimaru was going to leave them to die within Konoha once he did what he came here to do. The madman was like that, and Kurigakure didn't have enough manpower to successfully invade Konoha without Orochimaru, that much he knew for sure. The never-ending war left its mark on the village's military strength. But how did Orochimaru do it? How did he cast such a strong genjutsu on the Mizukage? Was it even him who did it? Based on the report from his spy network, the sage was sure that Orochimaru hadn't set his foot anywhere in Kiri for a long time now. There was no way he would have gotten to the Mizukage like that. Not with Jiraiya monitoring his actions. And how could have the Mizukage been under another genjutsu for so long? There were so many questions and so little answers, causing Jiraiya to frown even deeper. There was something off about the whole thing. He knew Orochimaru, and this didn't smell like his own plan. He looked back at the red-haired Kunoichi with an inaudible sigh. This was another thing. What was he supposed to do with her? He hated politics, and the decision he had to do was just that. Thinking about it seriously, what if this was a trap? Mei Terumi could have been in a cahoots with Orochimaru, and this was a plan too. Jiraiya shook his head. No, that wouldn't make sense. She told him too much information, and from what he knew about the Kunoichi, she wouldn't have joined Orochimaru. She valued her own village far too much to do such a foolish thing. That was also why Jiraiya had been so confused when he had given that photo to Sarutobi. He hadn't been able to understand why she had been hurrying towards Konoha with her own country in such turmoil. But would he bet the safety of Konoha on what he felt was the truth? When an explosion came from a distance and he could see the heads of large snakes gnawing on the Konoha walls along with a mist forming not that far from his position, Jiraiya cursed. Mei really was telling the truth, and the invasion was beginning to take place. He was running out of time. Fine. Come with me. I have a vague idea what is going on here. Along the way, Jiraiya witnessed Mei and her men helping Konoha shinobi in fighting against their own kind, which only further convinced the man that his decision to trust the Kunoichi had been right. Still, to be sure, he had carefully nodded towards a group of Anbu he knew had been hidden somewhere nearby. It had been a signal for them to monitor the Kiri shinobi that had come with Mei. As they were nearing the arena for Chunin exams and they heard sound of battles, Jiraiya hoped he would arrive in time. He was worried not just about his godson's safety but also of what Orochimaru's plan was. One of his possible theories was that his former teammate came to take revenge on their teacher, the Hokage. However, such a reason felt petty, even for Orochimaru. If it turned to be true, then there was definitely something off about this whole invasion. Crossing a cloud of smoke, they landed on a roof, in front of the large purple barrier where they found a few Anbu next to the three Hokage's bodyguards. Once they noticed Kiri shinobi behind Jiraiya, they prepared to fight them, but the sage quickly motioned them to stand down. Easy, they are on our side. I can assure you of that. His words managed to calm them down a little. With a glance, the sage looked through the barrier to see exactly what he feared he would see. So he got sensei. How is he doing? They still haven't started fighting. We were preparing to use the fourth's technique to teleport to the Hokage-sama's side. Genma answered him. Thinking furiously, Jiraiya glanced between the Hokage's platoon, the barrier, Mei, Anbu and the mist down within the arena, from which he could feel a strong presence. He made a decision. Good. Use it and take Mei Terumi with you. Genma along with his other teammates tried to protest, but Jiraiya raised his hand. She is our ally, and she is also strong enough not to be a nuisance to the Hokage. Even if you don't trust her, you will be there too. I can't go because I'm needed elsewhere, and even if I went inside instead of her, it would still take some time before we could defeat Orochimaru. A time that is too sparse. He strictly explained and then turned to Mei herself. This is your chance to prove your words. If you do this, I think it will greatly influence Hokage's opinion on what to do after this is over. I understand, she replied instantly. Jiraiya watched her stand into a circle formed with the members of the Hokage's platoon and then turned to Anbu. Where is Tsuchikage? He appears to be watching the situation, blasting shinobi of Kurigakure who try to go against him. One of them answered, the Kazekage, fighting with Kisame Hoshigaki, the missing nin from Kurigakure. The sage's eye twitched. Akatsuki, what are they doing here? It's too soon for them to try and take Naruto, isn't it? Something is definitely off here. If Kisame Hoshigaki is here then, he should be here too. He thought. Pointing at Mei's men, he spoke to Anbu. Take them with you as a support team. They can help, but be careful not to let any of the Hyuga members see out. I don't want a bigger mess. Ordinarily, nobody else than the Hokage could give any orders to Anbu, but after the fourth Hokage died and the third was forced to return from retirement, Sarutobi had given him this privilege in case a situation like this would arise. And Jiraiya was determined to make the best of it. Understood. They heard a popping sound, which meant the Hokage's platoon, along with Mei Terumi, teleported inside the barrier. Jiraiya nodded to Anbu. I'm going down to the arena. With that, he jumped down and, when he felt an enemy moving towards him, he readied a vicious kick. Ellipsis. Inside the barrier, staring at each other from a small distance, confined within the space of a purple barrier, the Hokage and Orochimaru wordlessly exerted their chakra until the roof beneath their feet creaked. A bit of blood dripped from the Sannin's palm, which he pierced with a kunai to tone down his own excitement. The elation from having a chance to fight his former teacher was too great for him, and the wide grin just wouldn't come off of his face. Seeing the old man taking off his robe to reveal a fighting gear, Orochimaru couldn't help but chuckle. I see you have prepared a garb for your funeral. He threw away his own cloak. That means I'll just have to make sure you'll have one. With a frown, the Hokage snatched a shuriken from his chest pocket and threw it at the Sannin while flashing through a series of hand seals. They had exchanged enough words since the man had snatched him away. It was time to fight. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. The single shuriken multiplied itself by 100-fold in an instant, and the volley flew towards Orochimaru almost as fast as bullets shot from a gun, but the Sannin's grin just widened. He clasped his palms together, and in front of the Hokage's eyes, a coffin with the sign for first rose from the ground. That coffin, it can't be. Sarutobi grimaced and tried to stop the man from summoning any further coffin, but a loud pop sounded next to him. Lava release. Lava, globs. An unfamiliar female voice exclaimed, and several globs of lava shot at Orochimaru, who was forced to interrupt the casting of his own jutsu in order to evade the technique. Hokage-sama, are you all right? Sarutobi blinked when he noticed the three Tokubetsu Jonin hurrying towards him. It was his Hokage platoon that served as his bodyguards. With a sharp turn of his head, he saw a certain Kunoichi with long red hair warily watching Orochimaru. Mei Terumi, what are you doing here? Sarutobi was more than just a bit surprised at seeing the woman from a photo he had received from Jiraiya coming to help him. I see, you have tagged him with the seal and then used Yondaimi's technique to teleport here. Yes, I guess even a barrier such as this is no match for that. Orochimaru muttered to himself in dissatisfaction. He didn't attempt to continue his jutsu. With this kind of backing up, the Hokage wouldn't allow him to do that. Yet despite that, he smirked. Even one coffin was enough. Your men can explain it to you while we fight. Jiraiya-san sends me here. Mei stated in a formal tone, but she also nodded to the Hokage with a small smile, to let him know she didn't mean any harm. While Genma shortly whispered the explanation to Sarutobi's ear, the one coffin that had risen from the ground creaked a little when its lid slowly became undone. What is this? Mei asked in an uncertain tone. She could feel the wicked aura from the coffin. After they finished talking, Hokage nodded to his platoon and turned to the Kunoichi. It's called summoning. A pure world reincarnation, or, in short terms, Edo Tensei Jutsu, a forbidden technique where, using a living person as a vessel, a deceased person's soul can be called back to the world of the living and bound to it. Sarutobi, the professor, explained through gritted teeth, and his emotions mirrored the Mei's sharp intake of breath. From all people to summon him, and I hate to think who he was planning on summoning along with him. The lid creaked once more before falling down and revealing the person within. Shish Shadaim-sama, the two of Hokage's bodyguards exclaimed in shock, while the last one, Genma, only started to chew on his senbon with renewed vigor. The first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Mei whispered to herself, a tiny river of fear flowing through her veins. Every single shinobi knew that name. And every single shinobi knew the legend that was hidden behind it. Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, the legendary shinobi, the god of shinobi. A man with many names, not one of them able to capture his true power. The founder of Konoha with unmatched ninja prowess. The only person in the whole shinobi world that was able to use the feared wood element, with which he could suppress even a tailed beast with ease. Seeing that man in front of her, Mei was trying to hold on her own courage so that she wouldn't lose her composure. What had she gotten herself into? Oh, Sarutobi, it's you. You've got an old monkey, Hashirama said while looking at the Hokage, who returned his gaze with a hard and determined stare. I've never thought I would have to meet you in a situation like this, Shadaime-sama. As much as it is regrettable, prepare to be defeated. Hashirama glanced around him and saw Orochimaru walking towards him, a coffin from which he came out and the barrier around the area. I see, this youngling is the one who summoned me via Edo Tensei, huh? I told Tobirama this technique was a bad idea, he sighed. Yes, how about you old folks stop the chatter and get started? Orochimaru took a kunai with a talisman attached to it and moved it towards the Shadaime's head. No matter the era, there's always fighting. Hashirama sighed again and his body stiffened when Orochimaru's hand plunged into his skull. His skin, so far cracked, along with his overall appearance rapidly underwent a change, becoming rejuvenated while his eyes lost a certain glint. He looks as he did even more now, Sarutobi muttered quietly. With a wicked smile, Orochimaru applauded himself and stared at his former teacher. Kukuku, that's a nice glare, sensei. I hope you'll appreciate this situation, the happiness and sense of accomplishment you gain when you have the chance to hurt the one you once called master. I prepared it just for you, so you can experience this pleasure. The same pleasure I'm feeling right now when facing you. Please, enjoy. Sarutobi felt his muscles twitching and was considering just simply charging forward, but he couldn't, if only because of the people behind him. They were a blessing, yet a curse. His platoon, along with Mei Terumi, came to help him and he appreciated it very much, but they were also limiting what jutsu he could use if he didn't want to endanger them. As if reading his thoughts, Mei Terumi flashed across a series of hand seals and called out to him. Ignore us and fight to your full capabilities, Hokage-sama. We can take care of ourselves, she said and spewed a large amount of lava high into the air, aiming it at Hashirama and Orochimaru, who was standing behind him. Sarutobi nodded to his bodyguards and, instantly, they took strategic positions around the battleground to carefully watch the fight and spot any usable opening. Before the lava could fall upon the enemy, Sarutobi prepared his own technique. Fire release. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet Jutsu. A powerful stream of fire surged from his mouth towards the two men in front of him, the heat scorching the tiles of the roof with its potency. A large dome of wood erected itself in the last moment, shielding both Shadaime and Orochimaru from both attacks, shrugging them off with barely any damage visible on it. That's the Mokuden, the wood release of Shadaime-sama. It's still as grand as the first time I saw it. Sarutobi thought and jumped high when thick branches shot from underneath his feet. Biting his thumb, he drew a bit of blood and, after evading the rapidly growing trees, slammed his palm on a flat surface. Summoning technique. Monkey King, Enma. He mentally stated with a grimace when he noticed a bit of blood seeping from a few scratches. He wasn't fast enough to completely dodge all the branches. Meanwhile, Mei was unsuccessfully trying to get through the wooden dome, but all of her attempts were all for naught as the Shadaime's construct proved to be too sturdy even for her lava release. When the wooden branches started to grow from every single corner of the area, forming trees and, soon after that, a whole forest, she hastily withdrew back. After jumping in the air to avoid getting caught within the fast-moving branches, she took a short breath. Let's see if you can withstand this. Boil release. Solid fog jutsu. She released a large amount of vapor from her mouth that slithered around her to create a protective blanket of an odd-looking fog. She deliberately slowed down a little and let one branch catch her by her ankle. As soon as the wood came into contact with the protective fog, however, it corroded and died down. Back with Sarutobi, the current Hokage was using a large staff, which was actually one of few forms of his summon, Enma, to fight off the ever-growing forest. Spinning it around with precision, he felt beads of sweat forming underneath his forehead protector. Ugh, to think I'd find the Nioibo to be this heavy. I'm getting too old. An old fossil using an even older fossil, very fitting, Sarutobi-sensei. Orochimaru laughed and tilted his head backwards. A hilt of a sword, which he gripped and pulled out, appeared in his open mouth. But I'll humor you, he stated but made no attempt to walk from behind the Shadaime, keeping him as a shield. Sword of Kusanagi, huh? Sarutobi thought with a grimace. Oh man, even if I'm in the adamantine form I'm going to feel that one. The staff spoke in a whiny tone. The Hokage ignored him and jumped. Ellipsis. Outside the barrier, ignoring the vicious battle happening behind them, Naruto and Sasuke stood in Gaara's way, determined not to let him through. The Sand Genin's expression was impassive but an occasional twitch of his left eye clearly indicated his nerves were on a verge of breaking. Don't get in my way, he said, holding his head with his left hand. Killing your own father. I don't know what is going on but something like that, Naruto muttered and resolutely shook his head. He wasn't going to budge. Gaara's eye twitched again and he shifted his stare onto Sasuke who frowned. It was the same stare he had received that one time Gaara had found him during the past month, when he had been training with Kakashi. Sasuke Uchiha. The one with eyes like me. Hungry for power, for strength. Eyes that understand loneliness. Move out of my way or I will kill you. You won't. Sasuke's reply made the Suna Genin stare harder. Despite feeling the murderous intent in the boy's eyes and despite his words, Sasuke managed to do a cocky grin. You are not strong enough. Gaara blinked before he started to chuckle. But it was not a happy laughter. His chuckles were terrifying, filled with madness that didn't just suddenly grow within him. Hollow chuckles full of despair and desperation. Oi, Sasuke, don't provoke him pointlessly, Naruto whispered to him but then took a good look at his teammate's face. This idiot. He seriously wants to fight him. I see, yes, that's right. I don't have to kill father today. Instead, I will kill you. You, that is strong, that have companions, ambitions, you, that is like me. Once I kill you and destroy all of that only then I will be free. Gaara started to mumble while clutching his head. He appeared to be in great pain. Only then I will feel alive. He roared and then fell on his knees, panting heavily. His skin began to crack and sand started to fall off of his face. Watching him grunting, Naruto had a bad feeling in his gut. We should just knock him out now. No. Naruto bit his lip and turned to his teammate. Sasuke, our job is to prevent him from killing the Kazekage. I want to fight him. Facing the blonde, Sasuke didn't even blink. I want to test myself, my limits. I've told you, Naruto. My goal is to avenge my clan and kill Itachi. I can't do that if I'm weak. This fight is to determine how far I have gone. When Naruto still looked like he wanted to oppose him, Sasuke did one thing the blonde Uzumaki didn't expect him to do. Please, Naruto. Faced with the sight of the last Uchiha in Konoha asking him for this fight in such a quiet voice, Naruto didn't know what to do. He was not just surprised, he was completely dumbstruck. He had never heard Sasuke ask anybody for anything. He had never seen Sasuke give this kind of meaningful stare to anybody. And not once he had seen his teammate look this vulnerable. It seemed the desire to fight Gaara was not just some random excuse for violence but it held some deeper meaning for him. But it also seemed he desperately wanted Naruto to know that. Why? Naruto did not know but, somehow, it moved him. There was some kind of untold trust going on between the two of them at that moment. It was a moment that could determine the future direction of the bond they had. The bond Naruto knew both of them needed. That was what Naruto felt. And because of that, he just couldn't refuse him. Fine, but I'll be watching closely. Don't forget what Kuretsuchi-san said. Gaara is a Jinchuriki. He's not a regular genin. I don't know how much of his tailed beast's chakra he can use but if he starts to overwhelm you, I will not stand by and let you die like an idiot. Sasuke narrowed his eyes for a moment. You seem to know quite a lot about these Jinchuriki. But then he smirked. Nevertheless, fine. Sound of battles, screams of fighters, cries of the injured, the never-ending cycle of a battlefield was accompanying a young blonde kunoichi in her attempt to get herself and the unmoving girl loosely flung over her shoulder to safety. She was tired, exhausted both mentally and physically. Wet from the heavy downpour falling on her from the heavens, she quietly made her way around yet another damaged building. Cautious about the presence of her enemies, she grimly, but gently, readjusted her cargo. She did not want to drop it again and, thus, reveal her position. The kunoichi, Ino Yamanaka, felt very anxious at the moment. She was all alone, The only other person in her vicinity was sleeping heavily because of a genjutsu, leaving Ino no other choice than to be quiet and try to stealthily get across Konoha. Which was quite a problem for the kunoichi, as she wasn't really the type that could keep her voice locked within her throat. She needed to talk or to hear others do that for her. Maybe it was the trait of Yamanaka clan members who, using their special jutsu, could read other people's minds, or maybe it wasn't. Either way, the silence, or, to be precise, the lack of people talking to her, was killing her. She moved around the corner and peeked at the empty street. Retracting backwards, she sighed and glanced at Sakura, the girl she was carrying. Sheesh, who would have thought you were so heavy? Damn girl, you need to go on a diet, Ino thought. As soon as these thoughts passed through her mind, she cringed. With a guilty look on her face, she gazed at her feet. I did it again. Sorry guys, it's hard to get rid of bad habits. She berated herself. She had sworn to Choji and, later, to Shikamaru and even her sensei, Asuma, that she was going to become a real kunoichi and not the joke she had been so far. One of the requirements for that to happen was to get rid of her usual train of thoughts, which meant no thinking of going on pointless diets. Although, that was just one of the entries from a long list Asuma had written for her. Okay, my bad. Let's do it again. Damn girl, I need to start increasing my training so that I wouldn't whine when I need to carry somebody. She thought and smiled a little. That's better. Peeking at the street again, to make sure it really was empty, she lowered herself a bit, tightened her leg muscles and, after a moment, sprung to action. She kept her gaze firmly on her target, the side wall of the building a short distance away from her, but at the same time, she let her senses feel her surroundings in case of a sudden attack. Funnily enough, though she hated the silence, now that her feet were burying themselves into the water with every single step she took, she hated the splashing noise a lot more. 10 meters. 5, 2 AAAND I made it. She leaned on the wall and took few shallow breaths. Looking into distance, she knew safety was not far anymore. However, the remaining area she needed to cross paradoxically appeared to be increasing. Ino bit her lip. Calm down, it's just your nerves. You are a genin of Konoha. This is nothing. Ino didn't understand her own mind. She had been on missions with her team. Some of them had been calm and peaceful, but some of them had been rather eventful and even slightly dangerous. As a shinobi in making, she should have been easily making her way forward. But from what she knew, this seemed big. Somebody was invading Konoha and people were fighting, their lives at stake. And she was alone. Her team was nowhere in sight. Yes, Ino wasn't stupid enough not to admit it. She was afraid. The fear that was whispering to her from the back of her mind was real. But she was also extremely stubborn. Because of that, she could push herself off the wall and continue. Eventually, however, she couldn't do that anymore. Her stamina wasn't spent and her determination was still going strong. It was just that her path was blocked with a trio of shinobi with a symbol for a musical note on their Hitai-8. It's just kids. One of them said. Yeah, but they have Hitai-8, which means they are shinobi. Another one said. Lord Orochimaru said to kill indiscriminately. The last one stated. All of them stared at her with serious gazes. I guess you have bad luck, girl. The first one said as all of them took out kunai. Ino gulped and frantically looked around, trying to find some exit, some way out of this. She had been so cautious so far, so why did they had to suddenly fall from the sky? When the trio began to move, Ino realized it. She had nowhere to run. Not with Sakura on her shoulder, at least. No, she mentally yelled when her fear, so far whispering nonsense, offered her a solution in form of abandoning Sakura. And it was so easy. She just had to drop her down, turn around and run as fast as she could. With a bit of luck, she could get to some Konoha forces before those three men caught her. She glanced at Sakura and almost chuckled. Gently, she lowered herself and put the girl down, propping her against a nearby wall. The action caused the shinobi from Otogakur stop for a moment. I'm sorry, Sakura, I just can't do it. I want to, but I just can't leave you like this. We had been best friends once, she thought, and, as fast as possible, spun around and pointed her hands at the one man that was standing between the other two. Ninja art. Mind-body switch technique. She thought, and, in the next instant, her body went limp. Huh. The first man stared at the girl, who seemingly just toppled over, with a confused expression. He was about to turn to his comrades when something pierced his throat. Ga. The man next to him held a kunai in each of his hands and, after the Konoha kunoichi went limp, he suddenly raised both of his hands and stabbed to sides. What the fuck? The third one yelled and hastily leaned backwards. The first one gurgled and fell on the ground, blood pouring out of the wound in his neck in large amount. The injury was fatal, and in a few more minutes, his soul was going to go on a long journey to the afterlife. Fuck. The third one yelled and pressed his left palm on his neck. He received a cut, but it was not deep enough to be a life-threatening injury. Glaring at his teammate, who was trembling slightly, and then on the limp body of the girl, he quickly understood the situation. Bitch. He yelled and threw a single kunai. It was directed at the limp girl's head. He was aiming to kill her in one hit. What he didn't realize was the sheer stubbornness of the girl he was trying to execute. Despite having her first kill in the past few seconds, Ino, in the body of the Odo shinobi, threw herself into the trajectory of the kunai and hurriedly broke her jutsu. Her mind transferred back to her own body just in time to see the man falling on the ground with a kunai embed into his skull. She blinked, her pure mind unable to comprehend the situation for a moment. Her first kill had to come, sooner or later, but it had chosen the worst possible time to happen. Right when she was all alone. Oh, I'm so going to enjoy killing you. The third man, the one that was still alive, spat out with a burning hatred in his eyes. He slowly walked towards her with kunai in one hand and a shuriken in the second. Seeing that, Ino subconsciously backed away from him, her fear returning, a lot stronger than before. The man grimaced. No escaping the reality, girl. You wanted to be the hero. Now you gotta pay the price. Barely registering his words, Ino felt a tear escaping her eye. With the last bit of strength, she turned her head to Sakura, not wanting the image of her killer to be the last thing she was going to see. Her scattered mind tried to form a one single last thought before getting murdered when the man walking towards her stopped. He glanced down only to find a thick tree branch sticking out of his torso. Spatting blood, he tried to turn around to see who did it, only for his life to leave his body before he could do that. Shit, he muttered before his dead body fell down. With something inconceivable happening right in front of her, Ino managed to get a hold of herself a little and she glanced up to see an Anbu with a cat mask landing next to her. Yamanaka Ino. I see no external injuries. You'll be fine. I think I saw your teammates coming towards this direction. They should be here shortly, so don't worry. He checked her for any wounds and, finding none, he nodded to himself, apparently satisfied. Standing up, he prepared to leave, only to glance at her for the last time. By the way, you did well. Once the shock leaves your mind, you can be proud of yourself. She didn't even have time to say anything and he was already gone. True to his words, she only managed to push herself from the ground and clamber towards Sakura, when her teammates, Shikamaru and Choji, landed next to her with worried expressions. Ino, Shikamaru exclaimed and took a quick glance at the scene. He looked back at Ino and frowned. While Choji fussed over the girl, she spoke. I don't think I've ever seen you use this much energy at once. You never exclaim, she said to Shikamaru. The boy blinked and sighed. Troublesome. From the way things look I thought you would be in a shock, but since you can joke I guess you're fine. She weakly smiled, but it was obvious from the way her hands shook that she was anything but fine. Shikamaru knew it and because of that, he grimaced. Choji, support her. I'll take Sakura. Okay. Shikamaru. Choji replied instantly and helped the blonde on her feet. Where tea? Crap. Get down, quickly. Shikamaru suddenly whispered and pushed Choji, with Ino on his shoulder, on the ground. What's going on, Shikamaru? Shikamaru just silently pointed at the area on their right. There, a man in a cloak with clouds on it, stood up as if he just climbed out from the ground. The man vanished before any of them could get a good look at him, but later they all swore they had been able to see his eyes. Eyes which had glowed red. Ellipsis. So unyouthful. We should be helping our fellow Konoha comrades and fight the enemy on the front line and not trying to get to the safety like cowards. Lee exclaimed and leapt forward, to deliver a devastating high kick to an enemy shinobi that appeared in front of him. We're doing that because most genin can't fight on par with a chunin. Not everyone is a monster like you or Neji, Lee. Tenten yelled in an irritated tone, growling slightly when her barrage of kunai didn't completely incapacitate her target. The man had been able to evade most of them and received only superficial injuries. With a glare, he began sprinting towards her, sending his own barrage of metal projectiles on her. Tenten hastily unsealed a tanto from her scroll and, spinning it in front of her, managed to block the onslaught. Lee, she yelled and stuck out one of her hands to the side. In the next instant, Lee grabbed it. Feeling the contact, Tenten strained her muscles and spun around, releasing the grip on Lee's hand a second later. Thanks to the built-up momentum, Lee shot straight forward and slammed into the opponent, whose reflexes weren't enough to allow him to dodge the surprise attack. Yosh, nice teamwork, Tenten-san. Lee's loud exclamation was met with a long and tired sigh. Shortly afterwards, both of them made their way to their last teammate, who was receiving a first medical aid from a shy girl in a hooded jacket. How is he, Hinata? Tenten asked, staring at Neji worriedly. He had multiple injuries all over his body, the result from using his 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven in a fight. Normally, such a result was unthinkable, but Neji hadn't been properly healed from his match with Lee, and because of that, he hadn't been able to keep his technique up for long enough. Tenten had told him it was going to end like that and tried to stop him from leaving the room for injured back at the stadium, but Neji had been too stubborn. Propped against a short wall, Neji had a strained grimace on his face, purposely looking anywhere but not at Hinata. After Tenten had insisted they weren't going anywhere with him in such a sorry state, he had allowed his cousin to treat him. That didn't mean he accepted the Hyuga heiress, though. He had lived with his grudge against the main house for too long. He was going to need some time to adjust his behavior, now that he knew the truth. At the very least, he stopped taunting the girl. It seemed that she had taken words from the Uzumaki to her heart and was going to change herself. And if she could do that, he would do it too. I've been able to stop the bleeding, Hinata replied timidly. Thank you. Tenten smiled at her gratefully. But he shouldn't move too much. We should stay here for a while. My ointment needs a bit of time to start working properly, Hinata added with red cheeks. She was not used to gratitude. With a nod, Tenten and Lee stood up and positioned themselves in case the enemy would find them again. It was just their luck that it happened shortly before they wanted to move forward. 2 foreign shinobi landed in their vicinity and immediately attacked them. Busy with fighting their own opponents, neither Lee nor Tenten noticed the third enemy silently moving towards the spot where Neji was resting. Just when the man was about to strike the defenseless Hyuga, Hinata, the shy girl with dark blue eyes, appeared and stood in his way with her Byakugan blazing. Don't harm Neji ni-san, she gently exclaimed and, with an opened palm, sent a powerful thrust to the man's chest. There was a quiet sound when a bit of chakra, expelled from the palm of her hand, hit the man and caused him to take a slow step backwards. Coughing blood, the man tried to raise his hand, only to topple over. Crap. Tenten noticed what was going on just after she dispatched her opponent and quickly jumped to Hinata, who fell on her knees. Despite being bloody and quite beaten up from her fight, Tenten felt sorry for the other girl. She recognized the trembling of Hinata's hands. She had gone through a similar thing in the past. Must be her first kill, she thought, and gently put her hand on Hinata's shoulder. It'll be all right, Hinata. Tenten glanced at Lee, who was still fighting his own opponent, and grimaced. Where the hell are her teammates? She needs them, not me. Unbeknownst to her, Kiba and Shino had gotten separated from Hinata by chance when their respective clan heads came to get them as soon as the battle for Konoha had begun. They left only because they hoped the same thing would happen with Hinata. They had no way of knowing the shy girl would follow her cousin on her own to try and help him. Ellipsis. With Hokage. You sure are a disappointment, sensei. We've been exchanging blows for only a short time, yet your breath is getting heavier with every passing minute. Kukuku, you really got old fast. Orochimaru laughed and fluently leaned backwards. The Hokage's staff passed above his head without doing any harm, allowing the Sannin to cut through the air where the Hokage stood. With a grimace, Sarutobi pulled back. Feeling a bit of fresh air, he looked down to see a cut in his clothes, exposing his skin. I can't let myself get even slightly nicked with the sword of Kusanagi, or I'm done for. I'm not sure whether the ancient poison of the 8-headed serpent Yamata no Orochi, from which the sword comes, is still active but who I know without a doubt is Orochimaru. Either the ancient poison works or it doesn't, in which case he would have soaked the sword in some other deadly snake venom. Sarutobi thought and, with a willpower alone, kept his legs from shaking. It was just as Orochimaru said. He was too old to be the Hokage anymore and was tiring fast. Only because of his 3 bodyguards located somewhere within the barrier, he was still able to fend off Orochimaru's attacks. Their support from shadows was irreplaceable. They couldn't outright jump at the Sannin and fight him without suffering a pointless death, but doing what they had been doing so far, throwing any kind of projectiles and barely noticeable jutsu, they had been able to somehow prevent the man from dealing the killing blow. Moreover, he was extremely grateful to Maid Terumi, who took it on herself to take care of the Shodai Hokage, Hashirama. Because of that action, his predecessor's wood element was mostly aimed at her, allowing Sarutobi to focus his whole attention at Orochimaru. The staff and the ancient sword met again, the metal of the blade screeching against the adamantine surface of the expanding pole. For an instant, Sarutobi's stare met the glare of his former pupil, both of their faces just inches from each other. One held contempt while the other won regret. Pushing against each other, they separated. Knowing he needed a second to let his old bones rest, Sarutobi opened his mouth. "You're not the only one who is disappointed, Orochimaru. I can't believe you'd wage an invasion on a village you have once called your home, just for a body of a young Uchiha." Orochimaru grinned, fully aware of the Hokage's intention. Yet despite that, he lowered his sword for a moment and decided to reply. "You are really naive if you think that would be the only reason for this, sensei. But I'll humor you, if only for the old time's sake. Since you know about Sasuke-kun, I'm guessing you are aware of my accomplishment." Sarutobi actually glared at him after that. "I couldn't believe it at first. But seeing you now, the face that didn't age a single day, I have to admit my suspicions were right. You actually managed to create some sort of an immortality jutsu." Orochimaru's grin widened and he let his long, snake-like tongue fall out of his mouth and slither around his lips. "Yes, despite being old, it seems your brain still works, Professor." Truly, the body of an Uchiha who had already awakened his Sharingan is a tempting offer. "It is a perfect host body for my soul. Really, it is. However, I may not need it in the end." Those words actually scared the old Hokage more than anything so far. "What are you talking about, Orochimaru? Kukuku, don't get so upset, sensei, you may get a heart attack. It is simple. Thanks to a small discovery during these exams, there is a chance I will have an even better body. If there was night at the moment, I would tell you to look at the moon and think about the beginnings of shinobi, of ninjutsu itself, but I think you understand even without it, don't you, sensei?" Orochimaru said with a glint in his eyes. He enjoyed seeing his old teacher gulp. Immensely so, and the Hokage gulped quite audibly and visibly. What Orochimaru just said and was hinting at was a complete absurdity, a nonsense. Even one of the legendary Sannin couldn't have hoped to achieve that. Just thinking about it made his skin crawl and his gut shaking. "You couldn't have. She is out of your reach," Sarutobi muttered. In response, Orochimaru tilted his head. "That is true, but, sensei, I don't really need her. But I guess that is enough about me and my plans. It is time to die, sensei," he exclaimed and swung his sword again. He was stopped when Hashirama landed next to him, his left arm slowly regenerating. Maid Terumi landed next to Sarutobi, panting more than just a little. "I think there is a chance of success, Hokage-sama. I've found out that my boil release is able to stop and push back the wood element of the first." Sarutobi recoiled and momentarily lost his focus as he looked at her, forgetting what Orochimaru just hinted at for a moment. "Really? That's odd. The wood release techniques of Shodai-sama should be, wait a minute." He stopped talking and quickly, while Orochimaru was busy ordering his puppet, he replayed everything that had happened so far within his mind. "Aha, I think it is because Orochimaru was unable to bring Shodai-sama back to life at full power. No. Let me rephrase that. He brought Shodai-sama back to life, but is allowing only a portion of his power to reach him because even Orochimaru wouldn't be able to control Shodai-sama at full power, even if he was using Edo Tensei. Or something like that," he explained quickly. "So I was right, right? We have a chance?" Mei asked hopefully. The Hokage nodded. "Maybe. Just maybe. Ellipsis. Looking his foe in the eyes, Kakashi's eyes didn't even twitch when he poured his chakra into his hand which was piercing his enemy's torso. Chidori, he stated firmly, and his arm, from his fingers up to his elbow, lit up with electricity from his most prized assassination technique. His young opponent realized it too late and his eyebrows shot up high when he felt his body getting electrocuted. Oh crap, he only managed to say before he started to shake uncontrollably from the electric current suddenly running through his whole body. Kakashi kept the jutsu active for a few seconds and then pulled his arm out. His foe fell down on the cold hard floor, still alive but knocked unconscious. That was a really annoying ability you had. Being able to liquefy your whole body. I assume you are a member of the Hazuka clan. Kakashi said, more to himself than to the knocked out teen. But I thought the Hazuka clan had been completely wiped out. Not to mention he was here fighting for Kurigakure, and Yagura, the current Mizukage, was supposed to be a zealous adversary of all clans with bloodline abilities. He thought, trying to understand the situation. Ah well, I guess it doesn't matter. Not everyone has to have a complicated background. He was, after all, not fighting me very seriously. He was probably forced to participate in this invasion. He said to himself and turned to glance at the roof, where the barrier was. Using his Sharingan, he squinted into distance. I guess the Hokage is still fighting, and, wait, is that who I think it is? Why is she here and fighting alongside our Hokage? His eyes were filled with confusion as soon as he noticed Materumi. Right at that moment he realized he was very clearly missing something. But then he shifted his sight and forgot about the kunoichi for a while. Sasuke, he's fighting. Is that Gaara? Somehow, I have a feeling I should finish things here. In a sharp turn, he crouched low and evaded a sneak attack from his blind spot. It's almost as if you have eyes even on the back of your head. A man in a mask walked towards him, his great ponytail swinging under a hood. Kabuto, I presume, Kakashi said in a certain tone. It had to be him. He was the one person nobody knew nothing about, and only somebody like that could sneak so close to Kakashi without him spotting him. The man chuckled, reached to his mask and put it down, revealing that it really was Kabuto. I guess Konoha's intelligence isn't as bad as I thought. Are you mocking Konoha? And if I am? Kakashi's brow creased into a frown and his Sharingan started to spin. Kabuto grinned and raised his hands defensively. Just joking. I'm not interested in fighting you. You would only end up stealing my techniques using that eye of yours, Kakashi the copy ninja. No, I just came to talk. Kakashi's normal eye twitched. Why do you assume I want to hear anything from you? He reached into his pocket for a kunai. I'm following Lord Orochimaru of my own volition, however, I'm not happy about this invasion at the same time. Kabuto said, causing Kakashi to stop moving. He hesitated. Why? It's not like Konoha is your village, am I right? He asked. Kabuto didn't answer that question, but he still responded. I'm not happy about it from one single reason. I hate the man behind it. That's why I was trying to raise suspicion with my actions. So you'd notice something was off. I wanted this invasion to fail, but at the same time, I want to see Lord Orochimaru succeed in his plans. It was hard for me to decide what to do. Kakashi blinked, feeling a dread in his gut. Are you insinuating that there is somebody other than Orochimaru behind this invasion? Yes, that's precisely what I'm insinuating. There is a person who really wanted this invasion to happen. He even went so far as to contact Lord Orochimaru. And as both of them are from Konoha, the plan wasn't that hard to plot. Kabuto said with a malevolent smile. Hearing that, Kakashi's expression darkened. Traitor within Konoha's walls, do you really expect me to believe words of a spy? I expect you to try and prove the opposite. Think about it. Think about how easy it was for us, for Lord Orochimaru, to get into this village despite being a missing nin. Think about the reason for Kurigakure to join our cause. For the Mizukage to invade Konoha. You can't think of any, am I right? Kabuto chuckled, but his laugh was met with silence. That's because he didn't have any reason. Even his men who followed him here don't know why they are here. They are just blindly loyal to him and never even thought about doubting his orders. Do you want to know why? It is because the thought, the very idea of joining forces with us, was implanted within his mind by this man from Konoha. A powerful genjutsu was all it took for the great Yagura to become a scapegoat. Kakashi couldn't believe what he was hearing. Stop beating around the bush and say the name. I can see you are dying to do it anyway. Sorry but I can't, literally. Lord Orochimaru would know, but I think I gave you enough information. If you are as smart as you claim to be, Kakashi Hatake, you should be able to figure it out. Kabuto said with a smirk and then threw a smoke bomb at the ground below his feet. And that is all I wanted to say. Remember my words well. Watching the smoke slowly dissipate, Kakashi didn't even attempt to follow after Kabuto. Instead, he was busy trying to believe what he just heard. He growled. This was bad. He wasn't about to believe words of a spy just like that. No, Kabuto could have just lied to instill discord and doubt within walls of Konoha. It was the more likely scenario. However, in case he was really telling the truth, then yeah. This was bad. It would fit too well into the whole scheme of things. Too well not to be true. He had to hurry. With a turn, he headed towards Might Guy to help him with his opponent, some Kiri shinobi with a hood that resembled a shark's head. Ellipsis. Naruto had been carefully watching Sasuke's battle with Gaara for a while, not sure what to do. His teammate's wish was for Naruto to leave him fight the Suna-genin alone and the blonde was abiding by it. He also knew there must have been fights happening all around the village and, as a proper shinobi of Konoha, he should have gone and helped the others in defending it. Yet he couldn't bring himself to do that. What if something happened to his teammate after he left? Not that he would have been sad if it did. Not unless he died. But since he had allowed Sasuke to do what he wanted to do, Naruto felt that watching over him was his responsibility. All of it crashed down when Gaara, under the pressure of Sasuke gaining the upper hand in their fight, started to release his Biju chakra. It had caused his body to slowly get more and more enveloped in a shell of a sand monster, creating quite a demonic appearance. Yet, despite seeing that, Sasuke hadn't wavered. Kuretsuchi had told them about Gaara being a Jinchuriki, and even though Sasuke didn't really know the term, he had quickly understood what it meant. In spite of such revelation, he had still insisted he wanted to fight Gaara alone. Though it was obvious the Suna Jinchuriki's transformation was now making him feel a bit apprehensive. Still, Sasuke was a very stubborn individual and so he didn't back down. Haha, is that all you've got, Sasuke Uchiha? Gaara yelled and swiped at the raven-haired boy with his demonic arm made of sand. His Sharingan glowing, Sasuke silently backed away and shielded himself when the attack missed him and, instead, smashed the surface they were fighting on. This is getting too destructive, Naruto thought. Soon, Gaara was going to destroy the whole roof he was fighting on. It seemed Sasuke realized it too and started to run towards a more secluded area. Naruto wanted to follow them, but a powerful explosion that shook the whole stadium came from below, from the arena, making him stop in his tracks. Jiraiya, he whispered worriedly. It was absurd to think that a Sannin like him could get defeated, but Naruto couldn't help it. Jiraiya was his only family. Torn between following after Sasuke and going down to Jiraiya, he smacked his head. Right, what do I have my shadow clones for? Shadow clone jutsu. Hido and 2 copies of him popped into existence. Follow Sasuke. If anything happens, one of you dispel to let me know. He instructed and let them pursue his teammate, while he ran towards the edge of the roof and jumped down to the arena. What happened here? He gazed upon the arena with shocked expression. The place was completely obliterated. Nothing but pieces of devastated land lay all around and some of the arena walls were barely standing. Naruto. The blonde spun around to see his godfather walking towards him. He was mostly unharmed, only bits of his clothing were missing with some scratches visibly glowing on his skin. Naruto sighed in relief. That was a big explosion. What happened? Jiraiya blinked and then chuckled. Oh, I get it. You were worried about me, weren't you? Naruto rolled his eyes. Come on. The Sannin motioned him to follow him. Together, they walked for a few seconds until they got to the center of the arena. There, lying on the ground, unconscious and beaten up, was the current Mizukage. The fool tried to charge a tailed beast bomb. I had no other choice than to make it explode in his face before he could fully power it up. Thankfully, his Biju chakra protected him from getting blasted into pieces, as I'd like to have him interrogated. He explained, shaking his head in exasperation. Tailed beast bomb. Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. He had never come across a technique with such a name. Jiraiya waved his hand. It's one of the most powerful technique a Jinchuriki can perform. Don't think about it for now. You are light years from even attempting to do it. Though you could learn the jutsu that Minato based after it. Oh well, the important thing is, a fully powered tailed beast bomb can destroy hills or even more. Overhearing his father's name, Naruto looked at him in awe and fear. It's that strong. Yeah, but as I said, it exploded right in his face before he could completely power it up, so he basically defeated himself. Then I used a seal to suppress his Biju. I wouldn't want him to suddenly wake up. Hearing that, Naruto excitedly took out a scroll, causing Jiraiya to narrow his eyes. I thought about it. Couldn't my seal, the one I modified after using it on Sakura, do the same thing? Suppress a Biju. With a horrified gaze, Jiraiya hastily shook his head. No, you didn't try it, did you? Not expecting such an outburst, Naruto blinked. No, I was just. He trailed off. Truthfully, after he saw Gaara slowly pulling out his Biju chakra, he thought about using his seal if things got out of hands. Jiraiya sighed in relief and grabbed his godson's shoulders. Listen, Naruto, never use that seal on any Jinchuriki. I'll teach you a proper one for that. The one you have is quite useful against a normal shinobi, and I'm proud how you managed to modify it all by yourself, creating a unique seal from a basic one. However, think about its effects. It shuts down the victim's chakra network, allowing you to control how much of it can flow within his body or completely suppress it, right? He said seriously. Naruto nodded. Yeah, now, what if you shut down the chakra of a Jinchuriki? If his own chakra couldn't flow within his chakra system? Creasing his brow into a frown, Naruto stared at the sage for a short while, trying to understand his angle. Since the man looked completely serious, he thought about it carefully. Shut down. His own chakra couldn't. Own chakra. Own. Wait a minute. His jaw fell down. Oh crap. Since there wouldn't be any chakra holding back the Biju, it could go out of control. He asked, alarmed. Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, something like that. Damn. Naruto cursed. He had almost used it on Gaara. Realizing his mistake, he felt his throat getting dry. The sage saw the realization forming on his godson's face and was satisfied he managed to get his point across. Then he blanked. Naruto, and why are you here? I told you to stop Gaara, didn't I? Or did you already take him down? Coming back from his thoughts, Naruto just casually waved his hand. Yeah, Sasuke wanted to fight him alone, so I let him. I have my clones watching T'Chao. He couldn't finish his sentence as he received a strong smack on the back of his head. What's the big idea? He trailed off and gulped when he noticed the stern glare coming from Jiraiya. Are you seriously asking me this? What is wrong with you, Naruto? This isn't a joke. Konoha is being invaded. This isn't the time for such nonsense. You should have teamed up and take him down as fast as you could, he said, raising his voice at the end. Naruto cringed. This was the first time he saw Jiraiya truly angry. He said he needed it, to find out how strong he was, whether he was getting on Itachi's level, and, oh crap. Naruto slapped his own mouth for that slip of the tongue. He carefully glanced at Jiraiya. The man caught Itachi's name and instantly one of his hands went to his face to slap his forehead. Damn it, Jiraiya thought and massaged his head. He looked at Naruto. I'm not going to lie, Naruto. I am a bit disappointed. This isn't how somebody who wants to be promoted to a Chunin should act. Looking dejected, Naruto lowered his head and gazed at his feet. Jiraiya's words hurt, but the sage continued soon after that. However, I can somewhat understand it. Sasuke is extremely stubborn and his fixation with his older brother borders on obsession. So it's not completely your fault. You have a difficult teammate. Just try to keep away from similar situations in future. Okay, he said in a gentler tone, easing some of Naruto's anxiety. The blonde weakly smiled and nodded his head. I'll remember that. Then his face rapidly changed expressions, confusing the Sannin. What is it? My clone popped away. Seems like Sasuke is running away from the fight with Gaara, yelling something. I have to go. Jiraiya glanced at the unconscious Yagura and then back at Naruto. Go. Ellipsis. He rushed through Konoha at full speed, the wind current tickling his skin with an occasional leaf hitting his face, but Naruto ignored it all. Thanks to his clone, he knew where Gaara and Sasuke fought. Or at least they had been fighting before something caused the Uchiha to drastically change his behavior. Closing the distance between him and the destination, Naruto arrived just in time to see Sasuke kicking Gaara away. It seems he was in rush to get away from the Suna Genin. Sasuke, what is going on? Naruto called out to his teammate, who had quite a maniacal gleam in his eyes. Itachi, he's here, Sasuke said in a deadly serious tone before taking off in high speed, back towards the arena. Wait, Sasuke. Naruto tried to stop him, but he was sent flying backwards when something hit him in his belly. Landing in front of him, Gaara licked his mouth. Ha ha. Sasuke Uchiha ran away and left Uzumaki Naruto here instead. Doesn't matter, your blood will be enough for mother. Naruto grimaced when he got back up and saw the current appearance of the Suna Jinchuriki. He's almost fully covered in the sand shell. That doesn't look good, and I can't just let him roam free now that Sasuke left. Damn it, Gaara. The arrival of a new voice momentarily surprised both Genin, and Naruto turned around to look at the owner to see two other sand siblings rushing towards them. When Kankuro and Temari noticed Gaara, they stiffened and immediately stopped moving. Gaara. No, Temari muttered worriedly. Don't get in my way or I'll kill you, Gaara said to them in a crazed tone, and then shifted his attention back to Naruto. I'll kill you and then I'll finally have a chance at my father. No, Gaara. You can't, Temari exclaimed desperately. Without turning his head, Gaara sharply swiped at the air and sent a volley of small sand shuriken right at her and Kankuro. Frozen with fear from seeing their little brother partially turned into his biju, they didn't even twitch. But in the last moment, a volley of metal shuriken collided with the sand ones and knocked them away. Surprisingly, there are quite a lot of things I hate. Do you know what one of those things is? Naruto asked calmly as he pulled his hand, previously full of shuriken, back. Gaara narrowed his eyes while the other two sand siblings just gulped. I hate when people mistreat their family. Pumping chakra into his lungs and adding his wind element into the mix, Naruto took a sharp breath and spat out a large bulb of wind that shot at Gaara, blasting him into trees behind him. Wind release. Air bullet jutsu. There was a short moment of silence when nobody said a word. Naruto just stared ahead of him, at the place where Gaara crashed. Temari and Kankuro were speechless, for one or other reason. Gaara's psychotic laughter reverberated through the whole area, sending waves of chill to anyone who heard him. Ha, yes, I see. That's it. This is the reason for my excitement, this pain. He appeared in front of Naruto again, slightly bent forward as he cradled his stomach. He had cuts on him, but they were superficial and barely bled. It gives me a sense of existence, to defeat the one who is strong enough to hurt me like this. To utterly destroy him, he yelled and lunged at the blonde with his demonic arm first. His facial muscles twitching from great focus, Naruto jumped in the air and evaded the attack in the last moment, swinging one of his hands down in the process and receiving only a slight cut. After he landed, Gaara slightly turned around to glare at Naruto, but then the sand from his arm fell down. Gya. Naruto calmly let the chakra around his hand disperse. I think I'm getting proficient in using it. I have seen you fight before. You are strong, Uzumaki Naruto. What is the source of your hatred? Gaara called out at him, trying to ignore the pain in his mildly bleeding arm. Frowning deeply, Naruto sent him a chilling glare. I told you I hate many things. That's true, but this power, all of my strength, does not come from that hatred. Nobody can be strong thanks to hatred. You've seen Sasuke running away, didn't you? Do you know why he ran? Because he wants to kill the person who murdered his whole clan. But he will fail. Do you know why? Gaara just continued to glare at him, his face full of anger. Because his reason for doing it is revenge, hatred towards the one who did it. Then what is the source of love? The blonde watched as Gaara's glare increased, his face twisting itself into a sneer. More sand crawled on his body, now covering both his arms. Love. Such a thing does not exist in this world. Not for me. I came into this world stealing life away from a woman I would have called my mother. Having this body possessed by the incarnation of sand, I am a born monster. I live to hate, and as long as mankind exists for me to kill, my existence will never end. He screamed, and countless sand shuriken exploded from his body to every direction, forcing Naruto to take cover. Face me, Uzumaki Naruto. Face me with your love, so I can crush it along with you. Arg! Gaara screamed again, clutching his head in his hands, feeling nauseous. Within his mind, a kind face appeared for a moment, a face of a young man who once told him what love is. Then the image faded away, and the same face, telling Gaara how he hated him the whole time, reappeared. He fell on one knee, feeling inexplicable pain in his head. Different images, all of them from his past, flashed through his mind like a memento of all the pain, all the suffering he had to face. All of the hatred that gave birth to the demon, Gaara. You had it rough, didn't you? A surprisingly gentle tone of Naruto's voice entered his ears. I think I understand where you are coming from. We are not that much different, you and I, you know. I could have ended just like you, and you could have ended just like me. But I didn't. As far as I remember clearly, I was alone. But now I have people who care about me, people I care about. I had to fight, had to earn their respect, but I did it. I have created a circle of people who are dear to me. And that circle is slowly expanding. Which is why I can be strong. Because I fight for them. Growling loudly, Gaara pushed himself off the ground. You can do that too. Despite what you think, I can see there are still people who love you. And they are closer than you think. Look at your sister and your brother. They are afraid of the monster that hides within you, yet they are not fleeing away. They stubbornly watch you fight because they worry about you. No matter how much you hate them, they repay you with love. They may be scared of you, they may be nervous around you, but they still haven't left your side. Naruto continued talking from behind a tree. Slowly standing up, he walked around it and showed himself to Gaara. Love, love, love. All you talk about is love. What is love, then? Is love talking behind my back? Is love trying to kill me from the moment I was born? Is love running away from a kid who just wanted to make friends? Is love screaming as soon you come into sight? Is love getting betrayed by the person who is closest to you? Is love being targeted by your own father? Is love being named Gaara, a demon that loves only himself? Answer me, Uzumaki Naruto. The Suna Jinchuriki exclaimed, the sand from his gourd slowly forming a tail behind his back. Naruto stared him directly into his eyes, trying to convey his honest feelings and thoughts as much as he could. I can't explain it. No one can. The only way to know love is to feel it with your own heart. You'll recognize what it means once you'll receive it. Once you'll receive it, you will feel your soul repairing itself. Love, compassion, joy. The strongest feelings that exist. I will not preach anymore as it is pointless. I am just a kid who knows nothing about the world. But I know something about pain, and believe me, it will go away once you'll find something to protect because of love. He could see he was not getting through. Yet there was something driving him forward, to desperately try and convince Gaara about the errors of his way. He somehow knew that this was the breaking point for the Suna Genin. Starved of love, the boy was getting too deep into the abyss. If Naruto wouldn't drag him out of it, nobody would. Kyuubi. What is it, brat? Spewing righteous words means nothing. I said you were strong, but nowhere near strong enough to stop me. I want you to give the biggest amount of your chakra you are willing to give me that I can withstand. I want to completely overwhelm him. Hey, I did tell I would cooperate once in a while. Fine, prepare yourself. If you think your love is stronger than my hatred, then show it to me. Show me your power of love. Now, an immense amount of chakra exploded from Naruto, sending shockwaves through the area and causing the wind to turn into a small gale. Doing nothing else than staring at Gaara, Naruto clenched his fists. His own blue chakra was swirling around him like a gentle river, while the red chakra from Kyuubi danced wildly like a maelstrom of viciousness. The trees behind him bent a little and a sound of creaking was heard. Is this enough? Naruto asked in a calm tone, causing Gaara to stare at him in shock and Temari and Kankuro to go completely white. You are, Gaara trailed off. I told you, I have people dear to me that I will protect no matter what. It is source of my power. Harm them and make no mistake. I will not forgive you. Haha, you, who claim to love. What would you do? Naruto slowly creased his brow and sent a deadly glare Gaara's way. I would kill you. The flaring chakra all around him only adding to the effect. The blonde genin looked truly terrifying at the moment. It seemed impossible, but it looked like his canines were prolonging, creating a slightly animalistic appearance. Feeling the source of Kyuubi's chakra was slowly diminishing, Naruto decided to act. Though I would prefer not to. He shot forward at maximum speed and appeared right in front of Gaara before the boy could react in any way. Launching a series of powerful blows, Naruto started to blur out of his sight as his arms and legs began to move too fast for his eyes to see them clearly. Helping himself with a yell, the onslaught could not have been stopped and Gaara couldn't do anything to defend himself. Hit after hit, the sand latched upon him was being violently stripped away and he felt as if his whole body was getting torn apart. After he sent the final punch, Naruto watched as Gaara practically collapsed, still conscious but unable to move a single finger, only his mouth. No, my existence will never be extinguished. It won't. I will not let it disappear. He desperately yelled. Naruto gazed at him, eyes full of understatement, causing the boy to lose his voice and try to move away from him. You are not a demon, Gaara. You have one inside of you, but you are not him. Don't let people tell you otherwise. Accept those who love you and you will become stronger than ever. Accept them and you'll realize there is more to this world than just nihilism. Accept them and you'll see they will do what you've been striving for all this time. They will acknowledge your existence. And once that happens, find me. He turned away from the silent Suna genin and prepared to leave, only to glance back once to Mari and Kankuro, looking apprehensive, landed next to Gaara. I have a feeling we could become friends. And then he left, leaving Gaara staring at his slowly retreating back with his eyes fully opened. Friends, he muttered quietly, Naruto's final words cutting deeply into him. Ellipsis. Back at the stadium, many Konoha shinobi had been too stupefied by the sudden appearance of a man who was considered to be one of the worst criminals in the village's history to try and apprehend him. Those who recovered from the shock had been too far away to do anything. Because of that, Itachi Uchiha had had the time to stop in front of the purple barrier and look it up and down with his Sharingan and concentrate an attack consisting of vile black flames at one small area. To great surprise of everybody, it managed to destroy part of the barrier and create a passage, through which he hastily got inside. Funnily enough, his hands stealthily formed a single seal. He deliberately chose the location to land directly between Orochimaru and Sarutobi. The two of them had been fighting for quite a while now. It was noticeable mainly on the old Hokage, who looked like most of his stamina had been spent minutes ago. Next to them was Materumi, battered, covered in gashes and panting a bit but still ready to continue fighting Hashirama. Itachi, Itachi Uchiha, Itachi, Sarutobi, Mei and Orochimaru all reacted to the sudden arrival of the man with different expressions. While Sarutobi was unsure, Mei was completely shocked, but the most interesting was the expression of the Sannin. He was seething but, at the same time, looking more than uncomfortable. One could say he almost looked concerned. I will be short. Itachi spoke up calmly and seriously. He was well aware of the danger he was in. The hawk has started to act by attacking its own nest. He said to Sarutobi, who paled considerably. The toad should look for monkey's lair. The monkey should remember the promise to the crow. Itachi continued, to a great confusion of all but Sarutobi. Then he turned to Orochimaru, causing the man's eyebrow to twitch. You have been very busy, Orochimaru. Apparently, you had your eyes set on Sasuke. I hope you will forsake that idea. For your own well-being, he stated, making his Sharingan spin to highlight his words. Orochimaru took a subconscious step backwards, vividly remembering the last time he clashed with Itachi. Moving quickly, Itachi blurred from existence only to stop next to Hashirama with one of his hands plunged in the man's head. Pulling it back, he removed Orochimaru's talisman, causing Hashirama's eyes to regain some light. This should make you remember my words better, Orochimaru. May we not meet again. He stated and exploded in a flock of crows, causing everyone to blink in shock. So he sent here only a clone. Sarutobi thought before he recovered from the surprise. Curse you, Itachi. Orochimaru growled and moved towards Hashirama, to replace the talisman. However, the Shodai's actions caused him to sweat profusely. Hashirama jumped away from his reach and formed a single hand seal. Afterwards, you should thank that young fellow, he said to Sarutobi as chakra began to pour out of him. What are you doing? Orochimaru exclaimed, sounding uneasy for the first time since the invasion began. Hashirama stared at the Sannin for a long moment, sizing him up and down. It saddens me to see that the world has not changed from my times. There is still pointless fighting and greed precedes generosity. I have no other choice than to use this chance to stop at least this fight. Your name is Orochimaru, son. Orochimaru, completely not in control of the situation, was able to glare only at the former Hokage. You should know that Edo Tensei is a kinjutsu. Don't use such a technique without having a full knowledge of it. More importantly, don't use it on a man who is also a brother of its inventor. Because of that, I know everything there is about Edo Tensei and, therefore, I can do this. Hashirama explained and began changing his hand seals. Going from snake seal, he continued to a ram, one followed with Bora, dog, and finally tiger. The chakra around him flared again and the cracks on his skin gradually disappeared. What have you done? Orochimaru's usual expression, a smirk, was now completely replaced with a confused stare. And Orochimaru despised being confused. I just released the summoning contract within Edo Tensei and, thus, severed the bond between you and me. You can't control me anymore. Orochimaru stared at him with a slightly opened jaw. Everything was falling apart. First Maid Terumi and the old fart's bodyguards getting into the barrier, then Itachi and now, even his own puppet. This wasn't right. This wasn't supposed to happen. This whole invasion should have ended with him killing his former teacher. Now, Mei exclaimed and spewed a blob of lava at Orochimaru's head. The Sannin was too stupefied to evade the attack and, after a horrifying scream, his head melted and turned into ash. Unable to remain standing with its head missing, his body leaned backwards and fell on the ground. Sarutobi stared at the corpse with a blank expression. After all these years, one of the greatest Konoha's traitors was finally dead. Yet Sarutobi couldn't bring himself to feel joy. Instead, he felt completely hollow. End of chapter 13. Special Omake. Genma's antics. With Naruto and Gaara. Love, love, love. All you talk about is love. What is love, then? Gaara yelled loudly, trying to comprehend the words pouring out of Naruto's mouth. Back at the stadium within the barrier. Genma was right in the middle of shooting a jutsu at Orochimaru when his whole head twitched and he felt his heartbeat going faster. With a leap, he landed right between the Hokage and Orochimaru with a dreamy expression. I must go. My bullshit sense is tingling. He exclaimed, causing both Sarutobi and the Sannin to stop and stare at him with their jaws hanging low. In a series of hand seals, Genma popped out of existence. Did he just use Flying Thunder God technique? Orochimaru looked at Sarutobi with his tongue doing a celebratory dance. Sarutobi just sweat dropped, because of Genma but also because of the hypnotic moves of the tongue that looked so meaty and nice. Back with Naruto. Answer me, Uzumaki Naruto. What is love? Genma appeared between the two genin just in time to hear the loud exclamation. He immediately spun around to gaze at Gaara. Ignoring the shocked stares coming from all shinobi present at the scene, he formed a friendly smile. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me, no more. H's took off his flak jacket, revealing a sleeveless vest opened enough to reveal the glowing skin on his chest. Spinning around, he formed a pained expression. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me, no more. Whoa, ooh, he sang in a high-pitched tone, ending his spin on his knees, staring expectantly on both Naruto and Gaara. Looking back and forth between the two boys, he moved his eyebrows up and down. What? It was good. After the invasion. No. But I was only trying to help. Genma yelled when Ibiki walked out of the small interrogation room, closing the doors behind him and leaving the now former Hokage's bodyguard alone with madly grinning Anko. Don't hurt me, no more. His screams resonated through the whole underground facility for long days after that. See you in the next one, till then. Peanut.